Chapter 4093. Rumble. Boom! The roar of the engine compartment came from the cosmic void to the right, attracting the gazes of all the prince's fans, Federation citizens, and starry sky powerhouses who had been waiting in front of the venue for a long time. An army of 10 million battleships was rumbling over. Their aura was majestic and mighty, and it was frightening. However, someone soon saw the logo painted on these battleships. After being stunned for a moment, they immediately exclaimed softly, "Eh? The logo painted on the hull of this army of battleships is so familiar. I remember, Triumph City. This is the logo of Triumph City. Is this the prince's private army?" This old man was scared to death. "I thought that a large army was coming to suppress Prince Xian, or that some empire was going to rebel. After so much fuss, it turns out to be the prince's private army of Triumph City. They must have come to participate in this press conference to witness the return of Prince Xian. Tisk, tsk, tsk. Impressive. When he was sent to. No, when he started this royal family's ultimate trial, Prince Xian didn't even bring 10,000 battleships into the Death Star region. How long has it been? He actually has an army of 10 million battleships. He really knows how to build." As these soft exclamations and sighs rang out like a tide, some people seemed to have thought of something. After all, in less than a year, there was suddenly an army of 10 million battleships. This was too inconceivable. However, these thoughts only flashed through their minds. Faced with such a scene, even if some people's hearts were suddenly stirred, they didn't have the mood to immediately think deeply about it. At this time, on the left and right sides of the press conference venue, a small fleet of the dynasty's immortal army had already set off to welcome the incoming Triumph fleet. The voice of the Triumph fleet's commander-in-chief, Naples, also rang out at this moment, resounding through the void. "I am Naples, former general of the Federation of the dynasty's immortal army. Now, I am the commander-in-chief of the Triumph Star Cluster on Prince Xian's territory, Triumph Planet. This time, we are here to participate in the press conference for the return of your Royal Highness. We have brought the entire victorious return army for your Royal Highness to review." Very quickly, the small Dynasty Immortal Army fleet that was preparing to welcome them stopped and quickly returned. This was because the Dynasty Immortal Elder Long Shantang had given the order to let the 10 million Triumph fleet enter the venue, right in front of the main stage of the conference, this empty space a million miles away. They formed a formation in the air for Prince Xian's inspection. Although Long Shantang was also wondering where Prince Xian had suddenly obtained a powerful starship army with a scale of 10 million, this was a good thing to begin with. With the help of this victorious return army, Prince Xian's reputation would be even greater, and the fate of the human race would be even more influential. Since he was happy to see it happen, even though there was something strange about it, with the press conference around the corner, Long Shantang naturally wouldn't think too much about it. Very quickly, with the order to let them pass, this huge victorious return army with a scale of 10 million smoothly entered the venue of the press conference. They directly formed a formation in the void in front of the main stage of the press conference. Moreover, since they were here to be reviewed by Prince Xian, it was naturally impossible to show their backs. Therefore, the 10 million battleships all faced the main stage of the press conference, which was the side of the Heavenly River planet. Vaguely, they had roughly formed a situation of surrounding the Heavenly River planet. This scene, through the eyes of the Heavenly River planet's garrison troops who were actually corpse slaves outside the atmosphere of the Heavenly River planet, was seen by Tuoba Linfeng, who was still hibernating in the military base in the depths of the Heavenly River Sea. He immediately let out a soft cry of surprise and began to mutter suspiciously. The arrival of this victorious return army with a scale of 10 million is strange. Moreover, they have formed a formation in the void, faintly forming a situation of surrounding the Heavenly River planet. This matter, could it be that there is some kind of conspiracy? It shouldn't be. Everything makes sense, and there is nothing far-fetched about it. It seems that I am overthinking it. Thinking about Long Xian's character again, he has always been so sensationalist. This is not the first time. This time, he must be putting on a show. On the surface, he is easygoing and approachable, but in fact, he is fond of grandiose achievements. Getting this huge fleet is proof. Putting on a show, showing off his muscles, and showing his true colors. His real face. It must be like this. Speaking of this, the suspicion that had just surfaced into Obelinfing's heart quickly dissipated. However, he still did not let his guard down. He still closely watched everything through the corpse slaves stationed outside the atmosphere of the Heavenly River planet. In the Heavenly River planet, Heavenly River City, Star-Lord's mansion. At this time, there was only half an hour left before the scheduled time of the prince's press conference. Now, the interior of the Heavenly River planet was almost empty. All the Starry Sky Masters who had recently heard the news, the prince's fans, and the people of the Federation were all waiting in the void outside the atmosphere. Inside the ship. Those who stayed in the Heavenly River planet were some of the local military forces, officials, and some residents of the Heavenly River planet. In half an hour, the prince's press conference would begin. This was definitely a grand event that the three major planes were paying attention to. Therefore, the protagonist was naturally especially important. Since entering the room specially arranged by the Star-Lord's mansion to rest 2 days ago, Prince Xian had not come out again. Today, the time of the press conference was approaching. The three immortal old monsters, including the elephant fox Martin, Long Shan Tang, and Gong Huaji, were nervous. They came together and waited outside Prince Xian's room. Behind them, they followed the Star-Lord and the garrison commander of the Heavenly River planet like little followers. Fortunately, the door was finally opened. The three immortal old monsters waiting outside the door heaved a sigh of relief at the same time and welcomed them with smiles. Yi Xian nodded and did not say much. He immediately walked out of the Star-Lord's mansion, followed by the three immortal old monsters and the Star-Lord of the Heavenly River planet, the garrison commander. However, Yi Xian knew that these two fellows were no longer humans, but universe zombies. To be precise, they were the lowest kind of zombies. Wait for the corpse slaves. After boarding the patrol ship, the group quickly passed through a star passage in the Heavenly River planet's atmosphere and arrived at the main platform of the press conference in the universe outside the atmosphere. There was a row of seats on the rostrum. The three immortal old monsters sat down with Yi Xian. Then, they each gave a brief opening speech. However, they did not say much, because everyone knew in their hearts that the main character of this press conference was Prince Xian. If anyone else dominated the microphone, even if he was an immortal old monster, he would definitely not be able to get away with it. He would even be ridiculed by public opinion. Soon, it was Yi Xian's turn to speak. At this moment, the gazes of countless fans of the prince, the people of the Federation, and the experts of the starry sky all gathered on him. Chapter 4094. Silence. Silence. A deathly silence. Hello, everyone. I am Yi Xian. However, I am not Long Xian, which means I am not Prince Xian. When these words came out of Yi Xian's mouth and into the ears of the crowd, everyone in the venue, near and far, opened their mouths wide and looked stunned. In fact, the three main planes of the starry skies seemed to have stopped time at this moment, strangely suffocating for a moment. Everyone who heard this thought that there was something wrong with their ears. However, they quickly recovered. Roaring laughter rang out in an instant, and some even said light-hearted words. Even the three immortal realm old monsters sitting on the rostrum with Yi Xian, the elephant fox Martin, Long Shan Tang, and Gong Huaji, who were stunned for a moment, also started laughing. Ha ha ha. His Highness is really humorous. Yes, yes. Considering the heavy atmosphere in the venue, His Highness actually made such a joke. This also shows that His Highness is an approachable person. With just a few words of self-amusement, he immediately relaxed everyone's tense mood. Unfortunately, before the three immortal realm old monsters could finish their chuckles, Yi Xian, who was sitting in the middle of the three of them, spoke again. With a serious expression, he directly interrupted the three immortal realm old monsters. "This is my press conference. Can the three of you please not interrupt? Are all immortal realm old monsters like this?" That one sentence almost made the three immortal realm old monsters bite their tongues. When they turned to look at Yi Xian, their eyes were already wide open, and their expressions were as if they had seen a ghost. What happened to being approachable and approachable? What happened to being amiable and amiable? What happened to having a sense of humor? He had not even turned around, and he had already become so sarcastic. They were immortal realm old monsters, and three of them at that, but he did not give them any face at all. Stunned, the three immortal realm old monsters felt their hearts skip a beat at the same time. Suddenly, they had a bad feeling because things were not going as they had originally imagined. The script shouldn't have played out like this. At this moment, the minds of the three immortal realm old monsters were in a mess. Their minds were buzzing, and they didn't know what to say for a while. However, Yi Xian, who was sitting in the middle of the three, spoke again. His face was full of seriousness, and he didn't seem to be joking at all. On an occasion like this, it can be said that countless eyes are watching from the three main planes of the starry skies. No matter how unreliable this Yi is, I wouldn't make such a joke at such a time. I'll say it again. I'm Yi Xian. However, I am not Long Xian. In other words, I am not Prince Xian. This isn't a joke. This is what this Yi Xian wanted to say the most when he held this press conference. To be precise, the purpose of this press conference wasn't to announce the return of the king, but rather, to clarify a fact. This is the truth. This Yi is emphasizing it for the third time. I am Yi Xian. However, I am not Long Xian. In other words, I am not Prince Xian. Of course, Yi Xian didn't deliberately pretend to be Long Xian or deliberately hide it. From the beginning to the end, Yi Xian had never publicly admitted that I, Yi Xian, am Long Xian, am Prince Xian. Everything that happened back then was just a beautiful misunderstanding. This Yi registered as an interstellar mercenary on the Sky River planet. After that, due to a chance encounter, I went to the Demon Star region in the first universe alone. After that, the rumor that Yi Xian was Prince Xian spread from the Sky River planet. However, Yi Xian was in the first universe and didn't know about all this. When this Yi Xian was brought back from the Demon Star region in the first universe by the immortal army sent by the Imperial Court, before I had a chance to explain, all kinds of rumors about Prince Xian's return swept over like a tide. At that time, this Yi Xian was terrified and uneasy. However, at that time, my cultivation was still weak and my knowledge was shallow. In the face of such a situation, I was completely flustered, so I couldn't immediately clarify the truth. In fact, Yi Xian didn't even have the chance at that time. After the Imperial Court sent a fleet to bring Yi Xian back to the third universe, they directly asked Yi Xian to return to the Imperial capital's immortal star. The immortal army that brought Yi Xian back followed closely behind him. Yi Xian's cultivation was still weak, so it was impossible for him to escape, so he could only go with the flow. When he returned to the Imperial Court, his identity should have been seen through by some of the higher-ups, which led to the matter of being sent to the Death Star region. This misunderstanding was not something that even the Imperial Court felt it was inappropriate to point out and cause even more pressure from public opinion. Then, it was even more understandable that Yi Xian, a weak cultivator, couldn't clarify it at that time. Originally, Yi Xian thought that after being put under house arrest in the Death Star region, this misunderstanding would slowly fade with time. The misunderstanding of Prince Xian's identity would also gradually be forgotten because this Yi Xian faded out of the public eye. However, later on, everything was out of my control. Now, the three main planes of the starry sky are gradually in chaos, and a great calamity is about to come. This Yi Xian couldn't just sit still and wait for death, so he quietly left the Death Star region and worked hard outside. However, he gave up the identity of Prince Xian, not wanting the misunderstanding to deepen. Unfortunately, the identity of Yi Xian had already been tacitly bound to Prince Xian by the public. Therefore, this time, when this Yi Xian returned to the third universe from another plane, the first thing this Yi Xian did was to trigger a change in the Federation's contribution ranking list. This time, when the Federation announced that Prince Xian had returned, this Yi Xian didn't even have a chance to explain. The Sky River planet was already full of people. In the face of all this, Yi Xian thought about it for a long time and finally decided to stand up and bravely explain everything, including the misunderstanding of this return and the karmic reason why this Yi Xian's identity was bound to this Yi Xian in the beginning. The above is what this Yi Xian wanted to say the most at this press conference. Every word is true, and there are no lies. Finally, I want to emphasize, I am Yi Xian. However, I am not Long Xian, which means I am not Prince Xian. Therefore, in the future, please don't call this Yi Xian Prince Xian. I am me. Yi Xian. At this point, Yi Xian didn't say anything else. These words could be said to be a long speech. He explained the reason for the misunderstanding of this identity of Prince Xian in the beginning, as well as the various reasons why this return to the third universe had caused such a commotion. Everything was revealed to the heavens. These words had been bottled up in his heart for a long time. Today, he released them all. The only feeling he felt was relief. All this time, there had been a small knot in his heart. But now, after he confessed everything, this knot in his heart was finally completely untied. At this moment, Yi Xian felt as if his state of mind had suddenly improved. The cultivation strength in his body, which had just broken through not long ago, seemed to show signs of breaking through again because of the great leap in his state of mind. Just as he was stunned because of this, the familiar system notification sounded in his mind as expected. Chapter 4095. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the ancient Dongshu arts. Current state, peak of the 9th rank Star Lord state. Ding! Congratulations to the host for making a breakthrough in the physical body. Current state, peak of the 9th rank Star Lord state. As the familiar system notification sounded out in his mind, a trace of astonishment appeared on Yi Xian's face due to his surprise. But soon after, an enormous sense of ecstasy surged into his heart. The improvement in his state of mind was unexpected, but it was indeed a great surprise. Peak of the 9th rank Star Lord state. He was one level away from breaking through to the state of Domain Lord. How could he not be excited? That was only the strength of his original body in its normal state. He would be even stronger once the demonic ape bloodline in his body was activated. When his original body was at the 8th rank Star Lord state, his true form of the ancient ape bloodline was at the 4th rank of the state of Domain Lord. Once he performed the 9 demonic ape transformations and reached the 5th transformation, he would instantly reach the 9th rank of the state of Domain Lord. Every transformation would increase his strength by 1 level. Now that his original body's cultivation had broken through again and reached the 9th level of the Star Lord realm, according to convention, Yi Xian should be able to reach the 5th level of the Domain Lord realm in his 3-headed and 6-armed ancient devil ape state after activating the devil ape's bloodline. Once he entered the 5th transformation, he would be able to reach the 1st rank of the Realm Lord state. He had finally reached the Realm Lord state and could feel the power of the Realm Lords in advance. At this moment, after Yi Xian finished speaking, the press conference venue outside Heavenly River Planet once again fell into a deathly silence. The elephant fox ferret, Gong Huaji, and Long Shan Tang, who had been sitting on the rostrum with Yi Xian, could only be described as shocked and appalled. Everything they heard just now was truly too shocking, and they still couldn't believe and accept it until now. It wasn't just that they couldn't believe or accept it, they couldn't understand or figure it out. How big and tempting a pie was that? The domineering Prince Xian's title now represented the fate of the current world. His reputation was so high that it even surpassed that of Mo Jinfeng, the demon's royal younger brother, who was known as the #1 monstrous genius, who had caused a commotion in the past half a year. He was definitely the only idol-level existence in the three main planes of the starry skies. Moreover, the Undying Empire had already officially expressed their stance. They said that they had sent Prince Xian to the Death Star region to undergo an ultimate trial within the royal family. Furthermore, they had already confirmed that he had passed the trial. If nothing unexpected happened, the future position of the Eternal Dynasty's greatest treasure was basically set in stone, and it belonged to Prince Xian. Such an identity was the dream of countless people in the three main planes of the starry skies. Unfortunately, they did not expect that even Long Xiang and the other princes of the imperial empires would be envious of Prince Xian, who was so popular that no one dared to challenge him. You, on the other hand, wiped the slate clean and put on a look of disdain. You actually revealed this fact yourself, and even emphasized it again and again. It was as if you were afraid that others wouldn't believe you and insisted on framing you as Prince Xian. Could it be that he would be able to create a wider world by working with nothing? Could it be, as these thoughts flashed through his mind, a ray of light suddenly flashed through the mind of the immortal elder from the immortal empire, Long Shantang. At this moment, his pupils abruptly constricted as he stared blankly at Yi Xian. The shock on his face could no longer be concealed. He suddenly remembered something. Previously, when he was in the demonic starry sky, Long Shantang had been captured by Mo Jinfeng, the younger brother of the demonic starry sky. Although the latter did not make things difficult for him, he suggested that they form an alliance with the human race to integrate their forces and face the upcoming chaos together. However, this suggestion was rejected by Long Shantang on the spot, saying that it was impossible. The latter then asked a very strange question. Compared to the status of a current prince, the life of an undying elder of the Undying Empire is light and heavy. Long Shantang was baffled at that time. After answering, he was released. Now that he thought about it, that sentence seemed to be related to what was happening today. Otherwise, how could there be such a coincidence in the world? Thinking of this, his gaze swept towards the 10 million battleships in front of the press conference platform, and his body suddenly trembled. At this moment, he finally understood. The third universe's human race had not had a large-scale interstellar war recently. It was impossible for Triumph City in the Death Starry Sky to build so many interstellar battleships within a year. The only possibility was that these battleships were all brought back from the first universe. This was something that others could not do, but the younger brother of the demonic starry sky, Missouri Jinfeng, could. He had the Medicine King Shenong cauldron and quietly brought it back. In addition, how could Prince Xian's 1.8 trillion Federation contribution points be earned under normal circumstances? Only the younger brother of the demonic starry sky, Missouri Jinfeng, who had been causing a commotion in the three main starry sky planes in the past half a year, could have this kind of extravagance. Even the Tianji clan seemed to have been driven away by him. What was 1.8 trillion Federation contribution points? In other words, if this conjecture was true, then this person in front of them was not just a combination of two great monsters. The so-called younger brother of the demonic starry sky, Missouri Jinfeng, who was a combination of 5 great monsters, was also not the true body. Just like Prince Xian, it was just another identity of someone else. And this person was Yi Xian in front of them. 7 great monsters in one body. No wonder he dared to say such words back then. He said that since the Immortal Dynasty had no intention of forming an alliance and the human race had no intention of forming an alliance, then he would replace them himself. He would bypass the Immortal Dynasty and the 10 Ju celestial palaces and directly integrate the power of the human race. Such arrogant words, anyone who said it would be scoffed at. There was only one exception. At most, it could only cause shock and horror, and that was the 7 great monsters in one body. Thinking of this, Long Shantang's body trembled uncontrollably again. He looked at Yi Xian with a face full of shock and stuttered, You are actually, what? Have you finally recognized me? Yi Xian lightly smiled and didn't deny it. However, he didn't reveal his identity on the spot. Instead, he blinked his eyes at the astonished Long Shantang and said, I don't owe the dynasty anything regarding this matter. Back then, you were the one who personally said that the identity of a prince wasn't the same as that of a prince. The life of a rotten old man is incomparable. It really is you. Hearing Yi Xian's words, Long Shantang's pupils constricted. He was completely sure and subconsciously turned his head to look at the 10 million warship army in front of him. An extremely bad feeling surfaced in his heart. Chapter 4096. Seeing that Long Shantang had guessed Yi Xian's other identities, the undying elder from the myriad Luo Federation, Elephant Fox Mink, couldn't help but sigh inwardly. His expression became a little strange. He knew from the beginning that not long ago, in the first universe's Demon Kin star field, he and the Blood Wyrm clan's undying great ancestor, the Three-Clawed Dragon, were captured by Yi Xian. Later on, they were subdued. At that time, Yi Xian had already revealed his identity. The outside world didn't know about this, and Yi Xian's order was for them to return to the myriad Luo Federation and the Blood Wyrm clan to not expose this matter. Therefore, this time, he was sent by the myriad Luo Federation to attend Prince Xian's press conference. Although he felt strange, after meeting Yi Xian, there was no other interaction between them. However, even he originally thought that Yi Xian's return this time was to use Prince Xian's identity to do something in the third universe. He didn't expect that the contents of the press conference would be so inconceivable. What was worse was that even Long Shantang had already guessed his true identity. What was the young master doing? Was he completely breaking off relations with the human race and directly starting a war with the Undying Dynasty to seize the imperial power? If that was really the case, just the 10 million battleships in the void ahead wouldn't be enough. Although his own methods were shocking and could suppress undying beings, this wasn't the Demonkin star field in the first universe. This was the headquarters of the human race. Just suppressing undying beings was far from enough. The second-generation ancestor of the Demonkin imperial family couldn't easily come here, because whether it was the Undying Dynasty, the 10 absolute sky palaces, or the Federation Senate, they all had undying emperors. If he really came, he probably wouldn't be able to go back. Even an official-level undying second-generation demon descendant was like that. How could he do it alone? If they really fell out and fought on the spot, the young master would be in danger this time. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, the elephantine ferret suddenly became anxious. Unfortunately, he could not even send a voice transmission to warn him. There were still 2 immortal realm old monsters nearby. Once he sent a voice transmission, he would definitely be discovered. In an instant, the atmosphere on the rostrum became awkward and heavy. Of the 4 people, Yi Xian had an indifferent expression, but Long Shantang was so angry that his body was trembling, and he was trying his best to restrain himself. The elephant fox Sable had a serious expression on his face, and was secretly anxious. Only the immortal realm old monster from the Tenju Heavenly Palace, Gong Huaji, looked at Yi Xian and Long Shantang with a confused expression. It was obvious that he didn't understand the conversation between the 2 of them. At this moment, the many fans of the prince and the people of the Federation in the void in front of them finally regained their senses after a brief moment of shock. Exclamations after exclamations rang out like a tide once again. It seems like Xian. No, Yi Xian is telling the truth. It's no wonder that his name has always been Yi Xian on the Federation's contribution points list, not Long Xian. The identity of Prince Xian has always been forced on him by outsiders. It's really a pity that this matter is so complicated. It can be said to be the biggest blunder in history. However, the responsibility doesn't lie with Yi Xian. At that time, his strength and cultivation were indeed weak. Facing the misunderstanding of almost the entire human race, anyone would be terrified. Everything that happened after that was just like what he said. He just went with the flow and couldn't help it. The key is that he actually dares to stand up and tell the truth now. This is a true idol. The imperial court has already internally decided that he will be the next immortal emperor. At this time, he actually dares to say such words and not be blinded by benefits. How many people can do this? These are not the most important things. The most important thing is that whether it's him conquering the demon territory of the first universe alone or the domineering return of the king this time, his battle results are unquestionable. Even if he's not Prince Xian, he's worthy of his identity as a national idol. Yes, we worship Prince Xian because of these impressive battle results, not because of the identity of Emperor Xian. As long as all the battle results are true, why does it matter if he's Prince Xian or not? I didn't expect that a commoner without any background or backing could achieve such shocking battle results in just over a year. His cultivation strength has also soared from a low-level cultivator to the current Star Lord level. Yes, all of this is too inspirational. Why do I have a feeling that after knowing the truth, not only am I not disappointed, but I worship him even more? He's a true grassroots superstar, the #1 in the world. Among them, there were even many acquaintances of Yi Xian, such as Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. These three girls obviously couldn't miss the grand occasion of Prince Xian's return, so they had arrived a long time ago. The three of them also knew about Yi Xian's true identity, but at this moment, their expressions were the same as those of a fox and a ferret, full of helplessness and anxiety. This was because even they didn't expect that after Yi Xian returned, he would drop such a heavy bomb without saying anything. Not only did he look like he was going to completely reveal his identity, but he even seemed like he was going to start a war with the immortal dynasty and even the entire human race. Has this guy been kicked in the head by a pig recently? He's infected. That's not right. This doesn't seem like his personality. Isn't this guy always the kind of person who doesn't pay with his life? Why did he suddenly turn around and screw himself over this time? A scheme. There must be a scheme behind this. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't do such a strenuous and unrewarding task even if he was beaten to death. He must be up to something by doing this. Just as the three girls were whispering to each other, the suspicion on their faces gradually increasing, on the rostrum of the press conference in the void outside Sky River Planet's atmosphere, Yi Xian turned his head and looked at the three immortal old monsters sitting beside him, including the elephant fox Martin, Long Shantang, and Gong Huaji. After smiling slightly, he directly opened his mouth and dropped a super heavy bomb. The three of you are all immortal old monsters with astonishing battle strength. What you just said is only the first matter of this press conference. Next, this Yi has a second matter to do, but I will need the three of you to help me. Are the three of you willing? Upon hearing this, the three immortal old monsters looked at each other, suspicion and vigilance appearing on their faces. This was because, based on their current understanding of Yi Xian's character, this so-called second matter was probably also earth-shattering, and definitely not something good. After hesitating for a moment, the three old guys finally nodded, but they didn't express their opinion clearly. No matter what, they had to listen to what the other party had to say first before making a decision. Chapter 4097. What? You? As soon as Yi Xian finished speaking, Long Shantang roared. No matter how big his imagination was, he didn't expect Yi Xian to make such a request at this moment. You don't want the position of future treasure that the dynasty gave you, and you have to do it alone. Moreover, since the dynasty didn't want to form an alliance, then you can just go around and come to the third universe to integrate the power of the human race. Now that he had guessed his true identity, it was good enough that he didn't fall out with him on the spot. How dare he make such a request, asking him to help him take down the Sky River planet? F***CK. The Sky River planet is an administrative planet of the dynasty. Isn't this asking this old man to help you rebel? I've seen people with big hearts, but I've never heard of such a big heart. You'd better hold back your words. Otherwise, once the zombie emperor becomes vigilant, I won't be able to catch all of you in one fell swoop. I won't be responsible." In the face of Long Shantang's monstrous anger, Yi Xian curled his lips, lowered his voice, and said this lightly. "Zombie emperor. Catch all of them in one fell swoop." This time, not only was Long Shantang stunned, but even the elephant, fox, ferret and Gong Huaji trembled. Although their reactions just now were not as big as Long Shantang's, after all, one was Yi Xian's little brother, and the other was a high-level member of the Tenju Heavenly Palace. Yi Xian said that he wanted to attack the Sky River planet, which was an administrative planet of a small country under the Immortal Dynasty, was here. Gong Huaji's reaction was natural, there was no need to make a fuss. Seize the master. But this didn't mean that the shock in their hearts was less than Long Shantang's. In fact, after hearing Yi Xian's words just now, the shock in their hearts was almost the same as Long Shantang's. They almost thought that Yi Xian had lost his mind. But even so, it couldn't be compared to the shock now. It was no longer a secret that the zombies in the third universe were wreaking havoc. Regarding this matter, the two camps of the human race and the myriad Luo Federation were worried. Even the races of the second and first universes were worried because once the third universe of the human race fell, they would become the universe's zombies. In that case, it was only a matter of time before the second and first universes appeared. However, no matter how hard the two human factions and the myriad Luo Federation searched, there was no news about the whereabouts of the universe zombies. The more this was the case, the more worried the upper echelons of the two factions and the myriad Luo Federation were. Recently, they were unable to eat or sleep in peace. But now, he suddenly heard news about the whereabouts of the universe's zombies from Yi Xian's mouth. Judging by his actions, it seemed that they were still hiding in the Sky River planet behind him. It had to be said that this matter was too unexpected. Caught off guard, even Long Shantang, who was on the verge of going berserk, was completely stunned for a moment. Just like the elephant, fox, sable and Gong Huaji, he stared blankly at Yi Xian with his mouth wide open, as if he was completely stunned by lightning. "What? You don't believe me?" Yi Xian shrugged and continued calmly, "If you don't believe me, I can prove it to you on the spot." The two guys over there smiling like grandsons should be the planet manager and the garrison commander of the Sky River planet, right? In a while, we'll start with them. However, once we make a move, this matter will be exposed. I can tell you responsibly that the entire Sky River planet has now become the nest of the universe's zombies. The official staff, the military garrison, and even the residents of the Sky River planet are all universe zombies. Some of these people are in the Sky River planet, but right now, there are also some in the atmosphere of the Sky River planet. When I make a move later, you must immediately rush to the three directions of the Sky River planet and sit in the void. At the same time, order your subordinates to send this part of the universe outside the Sky River planet's atmosphere. The zombies will be dealt with. Otherwise, if one of them is let go, I don't need to say what the consequences will be. Everything that needed to be said had been said clearly and without any doubt. The three immortal old monsters on the left and right were completely stunned. Yi Xian didn't hesitate too much. This was because the accident that had occurred since the start of the press conference had most likely aroused the suspicion of the zombie emperor, Tuoba Lin Feng. If this continued, there would definitely be unpredictable changes that would occur. Since they had to make a move sooner or later, it was better to do it sooner rather than later. Otherwise, they would lose the initiative and let these universe zombies be prepared. The chances of some of them escaping would be higher. This kind of existence was too strange. Even if only one universe zombie escaped and lay dormant, in time, it would eventually grow into a huge tumor again. Back then, the Heavenly War Empire's imperial capital, Heavenly War Planet, was so clean that even Yi Xian felt that there was nothing left out. But in the end, the facts proved that things were not as simple as he had imagined. In less than a year, Tuoba Linfeng led the remaining universe zombies under his command. And yet, they had already grown to such an extent. It was simply speechless. Therefore, this time, no matter what, any possibility of revival must be eliminated. Not even the slightest oversight can be left behind. As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Xian turned his head and looked at a group of staff members in the distance on the side of the conference platform. His gaze fell on the star manager and the garrison commander of the Heavenly River planet. Although these two guys were the local emperors of the Heavenly River planet, they were not qualified to sit on the rostrum on today's occasion, not even on the side. Yi Xian still had a slight impression of these two people in his memory. They were the descendants of two families on the capital planet of the small country that the Heavenly River planet belonged to. At that time, it was also because of the return of Prince Xian that they sat on the military and political leaders of the Heavenly River planet respectively. Unfortunately, now they had become universe zombies, Tuoba Linfeng. Corpse slaves. Since they were no longer human, Yi Xian naturally would not be soft-hearted. The instant their gazes met, Yi Xian grinned. These two fellows were clearly a little dazed. They didn't understand why Yi Xian, who was on the main stage, suddenly looked at the two of them. Furthermore, he even grinned strangely. In the next moment, Yi Xian flipped his hand and took out the latest model of antimatter light energy gun from the undying world in his body. At this moment, Long Shantang and the other two immortal old monsters sitting on his left and right also looked at these two guys with serious and nervous expressions. In fact, countless gazes in the void outside the Heavenly River planet's atmosphere all followed Yi Xian's gaze and fell on these two guys at this moment. The reason why Yi Xian used the antimatter light energy gun and not directly used his cultivation base was to avoid the next scene. After what happened next, Long Shantang and the others would think that he had used some special and strange magical method to cause this. There was no such concern when using a gun. Xiao. Xiao. Chapter 4098. Screech. Screech, the speed of the antimatter energy was too fast. Now that it had been condensed into light energy, it shot out like a bullet. There was no time for the two guys to react. In an instant, two holes were shot in the left side of their chests. This was where the heart was. Even if they were starry sky powerhouses, if their hearts were pierced, they would be injured even if they didn't die. But in fact, this was not the case. After the two guys' bodies shook violently, they didn't feel anything at all. Instead, they raised their heads and let out two shrill screams. This kind of screams was not something that could be made by humans. When it entered the ears, it made people tremble slightly. If they were caught off guard, they would be frightened. But an even more frightening scene followed. Along with the ruthless howl, a large number of tentacles extended from the bodies of these two fellows in an instant. They were stained with disgusting mucus. In just half a breath, their bodies expanded several times, reaching a height of 10 meters. Their previously intact limbs and torsos also became rotten, with suspicious pus. Pus flowed out. After suddenly being attacked, these two corpse slaves that had not evolved to a very high level were actually stimulated and directly revealed their true forms. The facts had proven everything. They were not human at all, but cosmic zombies. Even though they had been mentally prepared, when they suddenly saw such a scene, the three immortal old monsters next to Yi Xian were still shocked. They suddenly stood up and exclaimed in horror, "Holy sh**t. It's actually true. These two guys are the leader and commander of the garrison of the Sky River Star. Even they are cosmic zombies, doesn't that mean, it's over, it's over, big news, the entire Sky River Star is actually a super zombie nest." In the midst of the horrified exclamations, the three old guys subconsciously turned their heads to look at the Sky River Star behind them. The sudden change was too shocking. Even Long Shantang had no time to care about his dissatisfaction and anger towards Yi Xian. At this moment, he was thinking about how to get rid of this malignant tumor, and how to cut it down. Uprooting the roots, not even a single cosmic zombie could escape. It had to be said that this was indeed a very difficult thing to do. Even if Yi Xian had been prepared for this for a long time, there was still a possibility of negligence. After all, in addition to the cosmic zombies in the atmosphere of Sky River Star, there were many in the void outside. Roar! Screech! Almost at the same time that the three old men turned their heads to look at the heavenly river star behind them, a large number of angry roars and howls suddenly rang out from all around them. Looking around, a large number of people who originally looked like officials of the Heavenly River planet, or humans stationed in the Federation, had all changed in shape at this moment. From human beings, they had turned into ferocious cosmic zombies. Some of them were large in size, possessed great strength, or were good at spitting venom and other troublesome innate abilities. Some of them were smaller in size, but were extremely fast. At this moment, they waved the disgusting tentacles that drilled out of their bodies and directly charged at the nearby dumbfounded humans. Even more so, furious roars and shrieks were echoing from the abundant starships that were lined up in the void far ahead. The entire Heavenly River Star had fallen and turned into a zombie nest. In addition to the officials and the Federation garrison, a large number of ordinary people had walked out of the Heavenly River Star's atmosphere and boarded all kinds of battleships, mingling with the humans in the sea of starships. Now that everything had been exposed, these corpse slaves, who on the surface seemed to be ordinary people of the Heavenly River Star, finally revealed their ferocious faces. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it only took about a breath or so. The cosmic void outside the Heavenly River Star's atmosphere, near and far, had fallen into chaos. At this time, the fans of the prince, the people of the Federation, and the masters of the starry sky, who were watching the prince's press conference in the distance, finally recovered from the shock brought on by the great shock. One by one, their bodies shook violently, and they looked around with dull eyes. When they saw that some of the familiar people of the Heavenly River Star, the officials, and so on, had now all turned into disgusting, ferocious monsters, they all trembled in fear. Then, all kinds of screams and screams resounded through the void. Zombies. Cosmic zombies. Oh my God, is this a dream? Why are they all not human all of a sudden? Look, Old Man Wang has turned into a human-shaped 8-clawed monster with pus all over his body. What the hell happened? God d***it. I've been with him for the past few days. We've had several meals together. It's disgusting. Bah, so what if you've had a meal with that pus monster? Look at that woman over there. The flesh on her cheeks is rotten, and it seems that there are maggots crawling on them. I just spent a good night with her last night. I don't feel this sad even if I was f***ed by a dog. Run. Those who are not afraid of death, those with high cultivation, come forward. I don't even have the strength to truss a chicken. I'm just an ordinary person. In the blink of an eye, the grand venue had completely turned into a place of zombies. In the midst of the horrifying cries of horror, the real tragic battle broke out in an instant. Everyone in the human race was aware of the danger of cosmic zombies. At this moment, the cosmic zombies suddenly appeared like a tide. Except for those ordinary people who were not cultivators, who screamed and fled, the masters of the starry sky did not need to be mobilized at all. They started the battle immediately. Besieging and killing, boom. Boom. In less than 3 breaths, some of the ship's cannons had already opened fire. They aimed at the larger cosmic zombies in the void, and beams of energy shot out from the ship's cannons. In the void, scenes of slaughter could be seen everywhere. A large number of masters of the starry sky had all taken out their own magic treasures. While urging the power in their bodies to form a defensive light shield to protect them from the erosion of the zombie venom, they were also doing their best to besiege and kill the zombies. You 3 unreliable old guys, what are you still standing there for? Did you forget what you said just now? At this time, Yi Xian also roared at the three immortal realm old monsters, Elephant Fox Ferret, Longshan Tang, and Gong Huaji. They had clearly agreed that as long as he proved himself, they would immediately take action and guard the three directions outside the atmosphere of the Heavenly River planet to prevent the more evolved zombies. The commander took the opportunity to escape. But now, the old devil mosquito butcher, who was in charge of guarding the other direction, had already rushed out of the flagship fortress of the Triumphant Return and was guarding the cosmic void north of the Heavenly River planet, ready to take action at any time. The three of them were still standing there in a daze, staring blankly at the chaotic scene of the press conference, as if they had been struck by lightning. Chapter 4099. Sky River Star, inside the military base in the depths of the Sky River Sea. Sure enough, there is a conspiracy, damn it, roar. The zombie emperor, Tuoba Lin Feng, had seen everything that had happened outside Sky River Star's atmosphere. He knew as soon as the matter was exposed. In fact, the two black antimatter rays of light that Yi Xian shot out with his spear felt exactly the same as the ones that shot towards him. At that time, his vision switched between Sky River Star's Star Lord and the garrison commander. Through the eyes of these two guys, he was spying on everything in the outside world. Therefore, when Yi Xian turned his head and looked at him before firing the gun and grinned strangely, Tuoba Lin Feng was keenly aware that something was wrong. However, everything happened too fast. He didn't have time to react at all. The two black antimatter energy beams had already shot towards him. Everything had been decided in that instant, and there was no way to change it or reverse it. It was also at that moment that Tuoba Lin Feng realized that Sky River Star's momentum was gone, and that this place could no longer be saved. He almost subconsciously issued an order. Using the unique connection between the zombie emperor and all the zombies and corpse slaves in the universe, he ordered all the corpse slaves to immediately transform into zombie form. Including all the zombie elite soldiers, zombie generals, and zombie commanders, all of them were the same. It was because of this that in the next short moment, the corpse slaves in the void outside Sky River Star's atmosphere, who were originally in human form, all revealed their ferocious zombie form as if they had agreed to it beforehand. In fact, the scene inside Sky River Star was the same. On land, in the sea, all the corpse slaves and zombies in the universe, at this moment, all revealed their original ferocious appearance. Although the order was the same, the treatment of corpse slaves and real zombies in the universe was obviously different. Even real zombies in the universe, because of the difference in strength and evolution level, after revealing their zombie form, the actions they immediately carried out were also different. The zombie army under Tuoba Lin Feng's command now had an extremely strict hierarchy. At the lowest level were the corpse slaves. Strictly speaking, they were slaves. Their numbers were the greatest, and they couldn't even be considered true universe zombies. The door to life evolution for this special race had yet to truly open. On the surface, the large number of people on Sky River Planet who looked no different from humans, the official staff, and the Federation's garrison were all at this level. Right now, they were all in zombie form, and Tuoba Lin Feng was only using them as cannon fodder. Their purpose was to stir up the water and cause chaos, giving the zombie generals and zombie commanders that he was preparing to take away more chances to escape. Above the corpse slaves were the elite zombie soldiers. The elite zombie soldiers were true cosmic zombies. The door to life evolution for this special species had been opened, but it had only just been opened. The degree of transformation and evolution was not deep, and their strength was only around the black hole realm. This elite zombie army was formed in the last few months, and there were over 1 million of them in the Sky River Star. In fact, besides the corpse slaves, Tuoba Lin Feng was also using these over 1 million elite zombie soldiers as cannon fodder to cover the escape of his true subordinates. After all, there were too many of them, and it was difficult to take them all away. Above the elite zombie soldiers were the zombie generals. There were less than 10,000 of them, and their cultivation had surpassed the universe realm. They were the troops that followed Tuoba Lin Feng before he seized the Sky River Star. They could be said to be the backbone of the zombie army under his command. They were the most important, and he had to take them away no matter what. He would take as many as he could. Above the zombie generals were the zombie commanders. They were the best of his original subordinates, and there were only a little over 100 of them. Now, all of them had the cultivation of the Domain Lord Realm, and many of them had reached the Sector Lord Realm. They could be said to be Tuoba Lin Feng's generals. The above was the entire zombie army's level structure and current military strength. As for Tuoba Lin Feng, the zombie emperor, his cultivation strength had already reached the immortal level. Although he had just broken through not long ago, this speed was definitely enough to frighten people. Yi Xian's cultivation speed was already fast enough, but under normal circumstances, his original body was only at the 9th level of the Star Lord realm. Even if he activated the Devil Ape's bloodline and used the Devil Ape's 9 transformations to the 5th transformation, the cultivation he displayed would only be at the 1st level of the Realm Lord realm. Tuoba Lin Feng, on the other hand, had stepped into the immortal realm. In less than a year, the gap in cultivation between the two had actually increased by 2 whole realms. It was simply unbelievable. In fact, Yi Xian had expected this, so this time, he spared no expense and wanted to kill Tuoba Lin Feng no matter what. This fellow was too terrifying. Since he was a cosmic zombie and possessed the celestial devil physique, his path of transformation and evolution was as smooth as the Grand Tao. Moreover, his speed was extremely swift. Once he matured in the future, it would be utterly impossible to suppress him. Of course, even though Tuoba Lin Feng had stepped into the immortal realm now, he only possessed the celestial devil blade. However, Yi Xian possessed various primordial treasures and supreme bloodline abilities. So, not only was Yi Xian's overall combat strength not inferior to Tuoba Lin Feng at all, Yi Xian was even stronger. After all, more than one immortal realm expert had fallen at Yi Xian's hands during this period of time. Yet now, even though Tuoba Lin Feng was furious when his base on Sky River Planet had been discovered, he quickly calmed down. He didn't intend to take away the elite zombie army and corpse slaves that had just taken shape, and he intended to use them as cannon fodder for cover. However, he had to take away the close to 10,000 Universe Realm zombie generals and over 100 Domain Lord Realm zombie commanders. Among them, there were around 3,000 zombie generals and 30 zombie commanders. They weren't on Sky River Planet now, but were hiding in the void far away from Sky River Planet. Because Sky River Planet had been too lively these past few days, they couldn't return after their last hunt. However, it was precisely this 30% core combat strength that was left outside the encirclement that allowed Tuoba Lin Feng to have the confidence to escape from the difficult situation of facing 4 immortal realm experts. Roar! 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 At this moment, the vast and boundless Sky River Ocean was like boiling water, and huge waves were set off. Roars that caused one's soul to tremble resounded from the stormy waves. A terrifying cosmic zombie army charged out from the military base in the depths of Sky River Ocean. 1,000,000 elite zombie soldiers, all at the Black Hole Realm, immediately spread out as soon as they charged out of the ocean, forming small groups that began to stir up trouble and create chaos. Chapter 4100. Every one of the 7,000 zombie generals had a cultivation base above the Universe Realm. Every single one of the 70 or so zombie commanders was at least at the Domain Lord realm. This was 70% of the core forces under Tuoba Lin Feng's command. Now, this 70% of the core forces were following behind Tuoba Lin Feng as they charged out of the Milky Way ocean. A murderous and ruthless aura gathered together, causing an invisible hurricane to sweep through the vast surface of the Milky Way ocean. Tuoba Lin Feng didn't reveal his zombie form. In fact, he was already in the heavenly demon physique. Although he had the characteristics of a zombie, he was already different from a true cosmic zombie. He could be considered a special case in the evolution process of this species. At this moment, he revealed his original appearance. Since he was already exposed, there was no need to hide. This time, he would let the name of the former young master of the Heavenly War Empire's Tuoba family, Tuoba Linfeng, shake the three main dimensions in a single day. As for the 70% of his core subordinates around him, they were different now. On the path of evolution and transformation of the zombie species, although they had already walked very far, and their generals were all powerful beings of the universe, and their commanders had even reached the domain lord level old monsters. However, they still hadn't reached the critical point of evolution. Therefore, even though these zombie generals and zombie commanders were powerful, and because they walked different evolutionary paths, every single one of them had unique abilities and secret techniques, they were still cosmic zombies in the end. Their true forms, no matter how powerful they were still sinister and disgusting. Over 7,000 zombie generals and zombie commanders at the universe realm and above had revealed their true forms at this moment. Some of them didn't change much when compared to ordinary humans, but one could still tell that they weren't humans with a single glance. However, even more of them had walked different evolutionary paths. Their bodies had expanded explosively, and they were no longer human. The largest was like a mountain peak, and their bodies were filled with all sorts of non-human parts. Some even had the limbs and organs of various ferocious beasts. However, their heads were still human, but there were pustules and tentacles everywhere, more than 7,000 of them spread out across the Milky Way Sea. Such a scene was too terrifying. Even if it were a slightly timid starry sky powerhouse, facing such a scene, they would be so scared that their legs would tremble. Screech. This battle is a matter of life and death. Children, for this emperor, kill. Raising his head, Tuoba Linfeng let out a mournful howl. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand and summoned out the heavenly demon blade, which had a sinister and terrifying demonic aura. However, the black blade was still full of cracks and was not completely repaired. His figure suddenly shot up and rushed toward the atmosphere of the heavenly river star high above his head. Behind him, more than 7,000 zombie generals and commanders roared in unison, making different sounds as if they were demons dancing in a frenzy. Then, they also rushed up to the sky, outside Sky River Planet's atmosphere. In a short period of time, the vast and boundless Sky River domain was in complete chaos. There were quite a number of corpse slaves lingering outside the Sky River Planet's atmosphere. On the surface, they seemed to be some Federation troops, officials, and citizens. Now, these corpse slaves had all taken on the form of ferocious zombies and were running amok everywhere. Everywhere in the void was a battlefield, and smoke rose from all directions. At this time, with the wretched mosquito butcher, elephant fox ferret, Longshan Tang, and Gong Huaji, the four immortal old monsters all mobilized, guarding the four directions of the void outside Sky River Planet. Yi Xian's heart, which was still hanging in his throat, finally settled down. No matter how high Tuoba Linfeng had grown now, with these four immortal old monsters guarding the four directions of Sky River Planet, this time, he absolutely could not escape. In fact, if it weren't for the fact that the universe's zombies were too special, even if only a small low-level zombie escaped, in time, it would eventually grow into a huge malignant tumor. The spread of zombie poison was too strange and impossible to guard against. Yi Xian dealt with Tuoba Linfeng this time. There was no need to make such a big move. But now it seemed that everything was worth it. As long as he could destroy Tuoba Linfeng's zombie army, at least, one of the biggest problems in his heart was removed. It was not in vain. Boom! Boom boom boom, under Yi Xian's instructions, the commander of the victorious Return Legion, Naples, gave the order to bombard at this moment. In an instant, there was a loud roar in the void. Thousands of battleships of various types opened fire at the same time, aiming at Sky River Planet's atmosphere and launching a salvo. This scene was too gorgeous, and the entire starry sky was illuminated. Gotcha! As this wave of battleship cannon energy beams swept out like a rain of cannons, the Sky River Planet Star Defense Array, which had just been fully activated under Tuobalingfing's command, was shattered in the blink of an eye. The majestic and chaotic energy surged everywhere, stirring up Sky River Planet's atmosphere like waves in a raging sea set off by a hurricane. It was a spectacular sight. Screech! Roar! As the Sky River Planet star defense array was instantly shattered, a series of heart-shaking roars and howls of zombies came out in an instant. Immediately afterward, a number of zombies of different sizes, but all of them were disgusting and ferocious, passed through the tumbling atmosphere of Sky River Planet and rushed into the void of the universe outside the planet. This was the first wave of cannon fodder, acting like a smoke bomb, thrown into the starry sky battlefield to disrupt the situation. More than 1 million elite zombie soldiers, all of whom had cultivation bases above the black hole realm, revealed their true forms at this moment. Each of them was ferocious, and their auras gathered together, attracting the attention of everyone. Immediately afterward, as more than 1 million elite zombie soldiers rushed out of Sky River Planet's atmosphere, there were even more, at least hundreds of millions of zombie soldiers, rushing out of Sky River Planet's atmosphere into the void of the universe. The two zombie armies rushed out of the atmosphere one after another, and soon mixed together, and like dye thrown into water, they quickly spread out in all directions. These low-level zombie soldiers were like locusts. Not only were there too many of them, but they were also extremely fast. After rushing out of Sky River Planet, they spread out in an instant. In the face of such a situation, the volley of tens of millions of battleships was no longer meaningful. The second round of volley was not launched immediately. The commander of the Victor's Legion, Naples, was extremely experienced in interstellar warfare. He immediately changed the battle strategy. Half of the fleet of tens of millions of battleships retreated to the rear, forming a large net-like encirclement to prevent small groups of zombies from suddenly breaking through. The other half of the 5 million battleships were divided into 10 small combat teams in an orderly manner. They were flexible and mobile, each in charge of a direction, and launched a free regional bombardment. Chapter 4101. Boom! Rumble! In the void, beams of energy from the battleship cannons were intertwined, and the roars shook the sky. This scene continued until the end of the line of sight, covering the entire Sky River sector. The battle was too tragic. The entire battlefield was divided into two areas, the outer area and the inner area. The outer area was where a large number of starships that had retreated to the distant void to watch the Prince's press conference, as well as the starry powerhouses who had rushed out of the starships, were fighting against the corpse demons that had been lingering outside the atmosphere of the Sky River Planet. It was a one-sided battle, and it was absolutely a merciless slaughter. Although there were many corpse demons, their cultivation and strength were generally not high. Although the ordinary people of the Federation were no match for them, there was no lack of powerful cultivators among the fans and cultivators who had come to watch the Prince's press conference. Under their leadership, coupled with the bombardment of a large number of battleship cannons, the corpse demons in the outer area were almost all killed. But the situation was still grim, and no one dared to take it lightly. Because the zombies in the universe were different from any other kind of living creatures, and it was not a big deal to kill them. Whether it was during the battle or after they were killed, they were a very troublesome tumor. Once they were infected with the slightest bit of zombie poison, they would probably end up in tragedy. In fact, this kind of situation was unavoidable. Although the starry powerhouses who were besieging these corpse demons basically had protective means, such as casting out magic treasures to form light curtains, or directly putting on airtight armor. But accidents were inevitable in the battle. Some corpse demons even directly self-destructed, and poisonous corpse fluid scattered in all directions. During the battle, from time to time, some starry powerhouses were infected by the zombie poison. Some were caught off guard and missed the best opportunity to kill the corpse demons. In the end, they were quickly turned into zombies. They were originally there to kill the corpse demons, but in the end, they became one of the zombies in the universe. They turned around and pounced on their comrades who were fighting side by side for a moment. But there were also some infected people who self-destructed in desperation to avoid becoming a zombie in the universe. That was too horrifying, and it was more terrible than death. There were also some infected people who were directly killed and dismembered by their companions. This was not infighting, but helplessness. Those who attacked all had tears in their eyes, and their eyes were bloodshot. The grief in their hearts eventually turned into motivation for revenge. They roared and charged towards the next corpse demon. It could be said that if it weren't for the fact that the universe's zombie poison was too terrifying and difficult to defend against, these corpse slaves in the outer area would have been wiped out in a short period of time. But right now, the battle was progressing very slowly. However, it was comforting to know that at least all the starships in the periphery had formed a complete encirclement. So far, not a single corpse demon had escaped. It was only a matter of time before they were annihilated and the price that they had to pay. That was all. The victorious return legion that Naples had brought, and the 5 million battleships that surrounded Heavenly River Star were the dividing line between the two battlefields. Inside the encirclement of these 5 million battleships was the inner battlefield of the merciless strangulation that was unfolding in the Heavenly River Star sector. The two sides of the fierce battle were the other 5 million battleships of the Victorious Return Legion and some powerhouses from the Victorious Return City. On the other side, there were hundreds of millions of corpse slaves that had just rushed out of Heavenly River Star not long ago, as well as millions of Black Hole Realm elite zombie soldiers. The battle in this area was also one-sided, and it was even more bloody and cruel than the battle in the periphery. After all, the periphery was not a well-disciplined military standard battleship. Although there were many starships, they were too large and varied, and there was no unified command. However, the 5 million battleships that launched the attack in the inner periphery were all military battleships of the Victorious Return Legion. They cooperated well with each other, and all kinds of battleship battle tactics were used. It was a one-sided battle. Although there were more corpse slaves in this area, and there were millions of Black Hole Realm elite zombie soldiers, in the face of 5 million well-trained, well-coordinated, and well-ordered troops, the tragic casualties were even more obvious. Based on the current situation, it would not be long before they were completely wiped out. They would be wiped out. Such a scene was obviously not what Tuoba Linfeng wanted to see. Although these corpse slaves and zombie elite soldiers were undoubtedly dead in his eyes, and he had no intention of taking them away, even if they were dead, they could not be killed so worthlessly. At least, other than cannon fodder, they could not disrupt the battle. However, the role of creating chaos was still necessary. Unfortunately, the situation was stronger than the person. No matter how unwilling he was, he could not change anything. Now, nearly a quarter of the hundreds of millions of corpse slaves and the millions of Black Hole Realm elite zombie soldiers had been killed. If he did not make a move, it would be a complete waste. Roar! With a strong sense of unwillingness, Tuoba Linfeng let out a shocking roar. With a wave of his hand, his figure instantly rushed out of the atmosphere of Heavenly River Star. Behind him, more than 7,000 zombie generals and commanders followed closely. The final breakthrough had finally arrived. It was also at this moment that the 4 immortal old monsters, including Mosquito Butcher, Elephant Fox Ferret, Longshan Tang, and Gong Huaji, who had not made a move until now, also made a move at the same time. Evil creature, you finally dared to show up. Sending cannon fodder to disrupt the battle, and the core forces to wait for an opportunity to escape. What a good plan. Unfortunately, this road is blocked. No need to talk nonsense, such evil creatures, just kill them. The 4 immortal old monsters, at the same time, suddenly made a move. Their figures were still in the distant void in 4 different directions of the Heavenly River Star, motionless. But even from such a distance, they were still able to control the situation. Their divine senses had already locked onto Tuoba Linfeng and the more than 7,000 zombie generals and commanders behind him. Boom! Rumble, a huge roar sounded, and 4 energy attacks of different forms rumbled from the distance. A palm, a claw, a punch, and a seal. Although the forms were different, they were all tens of thousands of feet long, and their speed was extremely fast, covering Tuoba Lin Feng and others from head to toe. Screech. Spread out, split into 7 groups, and break out of the encirclement. This was the ability of an Eternal Realm Old Monster, and its might was too formidable. Even if all the zombie generals and commanders behind Tuoba Lin Feng had attained a cultivation at the Region Lord Realm, and there were even over 70 World Lord Realm Old Monsters amongst them, they were still insufficient when facing an attack of this level. The possibility of the entire team escaping was almost impossible, so Tuoba Lin Feng could only bear the pain and split the more than 7,000 zombie generals and commanders behind him into 7 groups, and as many as they could escape, they would try their best. As he gave the order, the vast zombie army behind him quickly split into 7 groups in the blink of an eye. Each group had 7,000 generals and 10 commanders, and they roared as they charged in 7 different directions. Chapter 4102. Boom. 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 Similar scenes continued to appear one after another. In the void, a series of huge roars that made people's souls tremble constantly resounded, reverberating endlessly. Just as Gong Huaji's energy palm blasted out and killed half of the zombie general squad in an instant, the giant energy fists and claws of the other 3 immortal old monsters also blasted out. As for the other 6 zombie general squads, 3 of them had suffered a great calamity. A large number of zombie generals and commanders had been blasted apart. Not even a piece of meat could be seen. They had all been blasted into bloody mist in the air, making people feel disgusted and terrified. Especially the squad that was blasted by the old devil mosquito butcher's fist, it was almost completely annihilated. The old devil was at the late stage of the immortal realm, and his strength was much stronger than that of Elephant Fox Martin, Gong Huaji, and Longshan Tang. At this moment, when this fist blasted out, it directly wiped out an entire squad of 1,000 zombie generals. Even Elephant Fox Martin and the other 2 immortal old monsters looked sideways, their faces full of fear. Especially Longshan Tang, who came from the Immortal Dynasty's Elder Pavilion. When he thought that this old monster, whose strength was higher than his, was invited by Yi Xian, who had a grudge against him, it made him feel uncomfortable, his face twitching. In just one blow, nearly 1/4 of the zombie generals and elites that had been split into 7 teams had been killed in the blink of an eye. More than 1,000 of his trusted subordinates had been killed. This scene made Tuoba Lin Feng furious, but there was nothing he could do. While suppressing his anger, he raised his head and let out a shocking roar, screech. Along with this roar, Tuoba Lin Feng, using his identity as a zombie emperor, sent out some kind of invisible and intangible signal. Even the immortal realm old monsters couldn't catch it, only the universe's zombie race could sense the mysterious life frequency signal. The situation was too serious. Although he had the immortal power, and even in a desperate situation, it was not impossible for him to resist 2 immortal old monsters by fully activating the heavenly demon blade in his hand, but it was obviously meaningless. There were 4 immortal realm old monsters guarding the heavenly river star. If this continued, even if he could break through, all the zombie generals and commanders under his command would be buried here. This price was too heavy. The zombie generals and commanders that he was preparing to bring with him were his trusted subordinates who had followed him from the very beginning. He had spent a lot of energy to cultivate them, and only then did they reach the size they were today. No matter what, he absolutely could not give up like this. At this moment, he raised his head and let out a shrill howl. His purpose was to create new chaos and create a new opportunity for them to break out of the encirclement. Roar! Roar! Without waiting for Tuo Lin Feng's roar to end, from the right side of the void, roars filled with incomparable ferocity resounded. It was also from the mouth of a universe zombie, and the aura was extremely strong, at least Sector Lord Advanced Stage. Yi Xian's heart skipped a beat, and an extremely bad feeling arose. He had calculated and calculated, but he didn't expect that in addition to the universe zombies inside the Heavenly River Star, there were other universe zombies hibernating in the distant void at the edge of the Heavenly River Star. In this way, the victorious Return Legion's fleet of 10 million battleships and 4 immortal old monsters had formed a full-scale encirclement around the Heavenly River Star, and it was completely meaningless. This was originally done to prevent zombies from rushing out of the encirclement and escaping. This was to spread the highly infectious zombie virus that had a terrifying evolution speed. But now, there were universe zombies outside the encirclement. Even if all the universe zombies in the encirclement were killed, what was the point? In the end, it was a temporary solution. Rumble, boom. Just as his heart was beating wildly, and he turned his head to look, there was a terrifying roar coming from the direction of the void. At the end of the void, more than 100,000-meter-long fortresses were reflected in his line of sight, and they were rapidly approaching. These hundreds of fortresses looked obviously strange, like commercial starships, but the surface of the ships was damaged. At a glance, it was as if they had just been attacked by space pirates. But this was obviously just a disguise. Their true ferocious appearance was soon revealed, shocking everyone. These hundreds of damaged starships were extremely fast, and seemed to have activated a space jump, but there was no unique buzzing and trembling sound when starships launched space jumps. But in the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the edge of the outer battle circle, close to the starships that were exterminating a large number of corpse slaves. Ka-cha-cha! Almost in the next moment, the sound of machinery grinding that made one's scalp go numb came out from the hundreds of Shang air fortresses that jumped over strangely. In just a few breaths, they turned into ferocious behemoths that were tens of thousands of feet tall. Their bodies were green and black, and their shells were glowing with a cold metallic light. Say! It was about the same size as the giant star scorpion, and it looked like a giant star scorpion with a hard shell. It perfectly concealed the strange existence of metal and flesh. At least, no one would associate it with a giant star scorpion when they saw it. But these were clearly not the so-called starships, they were simply transformed from universe zombies. They were the hundreds of zombie fortresses under Tuoba Lingfeng's command that were evolving in the direction of metal mutation. Since occupying the Sky River Star, all the universe zombies under Tuoba Lingfeng's command went out in batches to hunt. Every time they went out, these hundreds of zombie fortresses that were evolving in the direction of metal mutation would be dispatched. This was because the zombie squad needed them to transform into damaged commercial fortresses as bait and disguise. It was also because of this reason that these hundreds of zombie fortresses that were used as tools for hunting evolved extremely quickly. Today, they were all Sector Lord level cultivators. At this moment, as these hundreds of Sector Lord level zombie fortresses transformed into their true forms, their bodies appeared in the void. From the original fortress, large amounts of universe zombies fell out, appearing in the void. Other than the 3,000 Domain Lord level zombie generals and 30 Sector Lord level zombie commanders, there were also hundreds of thousands of universe zombies that had just evolved into elite zombie soldiers because of this hunt. A large amount of them, in the blink of an eye, occupied a large portion of the void. Furthermore, these elite zombie soldiers, generals and commanders that fell out of the hundreds of zombie fortresses all activated the zombie blood in their bodies at the first moment, transforming into terrifying and ferocious giant universe zombies. Roar! Screech! Amidst the heaven-shocking roars and howls, all the zombie elite soldiers, generals and commanders completed their zombie transformation in a short breath of time. Some transformed into 100,000 feet large rotting flesh-bone dragon, some transformed into a ferocious beast covered in pus and blood. Chapter 4103. This scene was too shocking. A group of terrifying giant zombie beasts suddenly appeared in the void without any warning. As soon as they arrived, they roared and roared. It was really too frightening. The huge motley crew was scared silly at first. After a short moment of silence, a tide of shocked cries rang out. "Oh my God, what did I just see? Is this still the third universe of the human race? The omnipresent universe zombies, their auras are so powerful and terrifying. Zombies. Universe zombies, oh my god, are we being surrounded? Run! Along with these horrified exclamations, the miscellaneous troops in the periphery of the battle circle were in complete chaos, especially the border area closest to the universe zombies that had just arrived. It was a complete mess. However, this was obviously not the worst. Immediately after, before anyone could react, a new unforeseen event occurred. Lee, far in front of the outer circle, among the hundreds of thousands of universe zombies that had rushed in from the outer circle, hundreds of stronghold zombies that had just transformed into their giant zombie bodies from the damaged merchant ships all raised their heads and roared. Immediately after that, a hair-raising scene appeared. These hundreds of stronghold zombies that could transform into a huge stronghold, but now they had transformed into their giant beasts. Not only did they not directly rush into the outer circle of starships to wreak havoc, they instead began to devour each other, killing each other. Such a scene was too shocking, it was simply shocking. The hundreds of stronghold zombies all had Sector Lord level cultivation, and the direction of their evolution was special. They were all mutated metal types. Right now, their bodies looked like giant beasts and had a metallic luster. Obviously, they were extremely tough. It made people shudder. But right now, facing such a crazy devouring each other, their bodies were like paper. Often, they would open their mouths and tear off large chunks of flesh from their companions. Even when they chewed, there was an ear-piercing sound of metal rubbing against each other. This scene was strange, it made people scratch their heads. Hundreds of Sector Lord level giant zombie beasts, this was definitely a very powerful force. If they were to join the battle, it would definitely be a catastrophe. But now, they were devouring each other and killing each other. No one knew what was going on, but they all had a bad feeling in their hearts. Something was amiss, and everyone knew this. Soon, the results were out. In less than a minute, the 100 Sector Lord zombie beasts had been devoured by each other, leaving only 60 to 70 of them, losing 2/3 of them. Unfortunately, the remaining 2/3 of the giant zombie beasts were all at the initial universe grade from the Sector Lord level. However, this wasn't the end, as the 60 to 70 universe grade zombie beasts didn't stop. Instead, they continued to devour each other. Moreover, as the number of zombie beasts decreased, the remaining survivors emitted stronger and stronger auras. Half a minute later, there were only 30 or so zombie beasts left. However, the auras in their bodies had reached the late-stage universe grade. In less than half a minute, only 15 of them were left. However, the surviving ones had late-stage universe grade auras. When there were only 8 zombie beasts left in this area, the auras in their bodies had broken through to the immortal grade. Finally, in just a dozen breaths, the 8 zombie beasts had turned into 4 4th-level immortal grade existences. In the blink of an eye, they had entered the mid-stage of the immortal grade. Even the cultivation of the elephant fox marten, Gong Huaji, and Long Shantang were only at this level. All of this took a long time to describe, but in fact, it happened in a short 3 minutes. When everyone finally came back to their senses and realized what had happened, there were only 4 of the hundreds of huge zombie beasts left. Their cultivation strength had actually reached the level of an elephant fox. The elephant fox marten and the other 2 were in a stalemate. Even the 4 immortal grade old monsters guarding the Sky River Star couldn't help but exclaim in shock when they saw such a terrifying scene. Goblet cultivation. It's actually the goblet cultivation. This kind of creature is too scary. It actually has such a terrifying effect when devouring each other. It's even more ferocious and overbearing than the goblet cultivation. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 Sector Lords have turned into 4 mid-stage immortal grade old monsters. How are we supposed to live? Look, those 4 immortal grade zombie beasts seem to want to continue devouring each other. Are they still not satisfied after reaching the mid-stage of the immortal grade? Do they have to make 2 late-stage immortal grade beasts or 1 peak immortal grade beasts? F***CK. Stop them. Stop them immediately. Even old Ghost Mosquito Butcher was shocked when he saw the 4 mid-stage immortal-grade beasts in the distance. They seemed to want to continue devouring each other. This kind of method was not only ferocious but also too shocking. A mid-stage immortal-grade old monster should be able to deal with more than 100 Sector Lord zombie beasts with some effort. However, after devouring each other, the 4 mid-stage immortal-grade zombie beasts had turned into 4 mid-stage immortal-grade beasts. Under such circumstances, a mid-stage immortal-grade old monster would only be tortured if he rushed over. It was simply unscientific that such a terrifying change could happen after devouring each other. All of this was obviously related to some kind of evolved bloodline in these zombie beasts. It was too terrifying. According to this, as long as they could create enough zombie beasts, wouldn't they be able to create marquee-level immortals in a short time through this kind of ferocious devouring each other? Upon realizing this, even Yi Xian couldn't help but show a look of horror on his face. No matter what, all the zombie beasts with the goblet cultivation bloodline had to be killed. If such a terrifying evolved bloodline wasn't killed, it would definitely cause endless trouble in the future. Boy, it should be enough for one person to stay here with you. The other two, follow me. We'll deal with the situation over there first. It was also at this moment that old Ghost Mosquito Butcher suddenly let out an explosive shout. Before he finished speaking, his figure had already disappeared. He had actually used teleportation to charge towards the periphery of the battlefield. Then, Long Shantang and Gong Huaji also disappeared and followed him. Compared to the army of zombies that had already been surrounded, the army of zombies on the other side of the battlefield was obviously more dangerous, especially the 4 zombie behemoths that had already reached the middle stage of the sempiternal realm. If they were allowed to continue fighting each other, it would definitely be a disaster. Chapter 4104. Along with the departure of Wen Tu, Gong Huaji, and Long Shantang, the situation of the inner battlefield around Sky River Planet instantly changed greatly. Disregarding the hundreds of millions of zombie slaves and the hundreds of thousands of black hole zombie elite soldiers, there were more than 5,000 Universe Realm zombie generals here. Besides that, there were over 50 Region Lord Realm zombie commanders. Of course, there was a final boss, the Zombie Emperor, Tuoba Lin Feng. Even though his cultivation was only at the initial stage of the sempiternal realm, he possessed the heavenly devil physique and the formidable bloodline of the first-generation zombie progenitor. Originally, there were 4 eternal realm experts here, so there was naturally no problem at all when facing all of this. They simply didn't feel any pressure at all, and they even had the ability to crush the enemy. But now, the 3 eternal realm experts had left, and only Yi Xian and the Elephantine Mink remained here. Even though there were still 10 million victorious return battleships, half of them were responsible for the encirclement and couldn't be rashly thrown into disorder. The other half were basically dealing with the 100 million corpse slaves and the hundreds of thousands of black hole realm zombies. Elite troops. In other words, the remaining 5,000 plus Universe Realm zombie generals, 40 plus Region Lord Realm zombie commanders, and the initial stage Sempiternal Realm zombie emperor could only be dealt with by the Elephantine Mink and Yi Xian. Yi Xian was obviously not suitable to deal with the former. Even though he had many abilities, the battlefield was too chaotic right now. Both sides were mixed together, so it wasn't suitable for him to utilize the Battle of the Stars. On the other hand, Tuoba Lin Feng was a bastard that he'd unintentionally created, so Yi Xian still felt that he had the responsibility to end Tuoba Lin Feng's existence. I'll leave those zombie generals and zombie commanders for you to deal with. Make sure that not a single one escapes, and kill as many as you can under the precondition that. Yi Xian didn't hold back when facing the Elephantine Mink, and he directly spoke in a commanding tone. As he spoke, his gaze had already shot towards Tuoba Lin Feng, who was at the other side of the battlefield, and a wisp of a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. As for that zombie leader, just leave it to me. He won't be able to escape. Right at this moment, Tuobalinfing's provocative gaze looked over here. He was also looking forward to this battle. This guy was quite arrogant. He smiled faintly and hooked his finger at Yi Xian. Then, he turned his head and looked to the side. He raised his head and let out a fierce whistle, as if he was demonstrating his power. Screech. As he howled, he flipped his right hand, and an incomparably sinister black demonic blade appeared in his hand, Zhang. Following a clanging sound that was filled with endless joy and ruthlessness, the demonic blade slashed out with a loud bang. The blade, which was originally only about 10 feet long, suddenly grew in size. In the blink of an eye, it was already 10,000 feet long. It was like a heavenly blade, and it was filled with ferocious gaps as it slashed forward. Boom! In an instant, the heavenly devil blade crossed the endless void and slashed the hull of a large fortress. A loud noise shook the sky, but the fortress did not explode. Instead, inside the ship, there was a tide of horrified screams, but after half a breath, everything stopped in an instant. The sinister demonic blade gushed out endless demonic aura. It spread out in an instant like the thickest black fog, completely shrouding the entire fortress. This large fortress with a diameter of 100,000 meters, and the dozens of fortresses around it, were completely invisible at the same time. Moreover, while the whole was wrapped in the black fog-like demonic aura, there was a screeching sound of metal friction coming from inside. It was extremely horrifying. However, in just a short span of time, everything returned to silence. The dozens of starry sky fortresses completely disappeared. In the void, the demonic baleful chi drifted like a black fog, but the figure of the great fortress could not be seen. These large fortresses that were enveloped by the heavenly devil blade's black heavenly devil baleful chi and began to corrode and devour them seemed to have been completely devoured. When the evil black heavenly devil baleful mist once again entered the heavenly devil blade's body, the void where the dozens of fortresses were originally located was already empty. An incomparably ferocious black demonic blade lay across the void. With a whoosh, it returned to Tuobalinfing's hand. The black fog-like demonic aura of the demonic aura surged, shrouding his body, exuding endless demonic aura. Middle stage immortal realm. What a wonderful feeling. With the return of the demonic blade, the black fog-like demonic aura of the demonic aura that surged endlessly around it rushed into Tuobalinfing's body. This was the energy feedback. When the black fog-like demonic aura of the demonic aura gushed out of his body again, it had completed some kind of refining and completely turned into Tuobalinfing's own power. It made his cultivation realm break through from the early stage of the immortal realm to the middle stage of the immortal realm. Although this kind of breakthrough could not be achieved only because the dozens of starry sky fortresses and a large number of flesh and blood lives in them were devoured. It must be that Tuobalinfeng had almost accumulated enough. The harvest just now was just a coincidence, and it just happened to make up for the last bit of demonic aura of the demonic aura needed for the breakthrough. However, this scene was still too shocking. Not only did Long Shantang's eyelids twitch, but even Yi Xian gasped when he saw this. Then, even more intense killing intent burst out from his eyes. This guy's strength is too fast. It's simply outrageous. Today, I must kill him no matter what. Otherwise, there will be endless troubles. Screech. Don't you want to kill me? Come on, I'll swallow all of you. Leave no one behind. Jia. Tuobalinfeng's cultivation realm had suddenly broken through to the middle stage of the immortal realm. Now, his battle strength had greatly increased. He was ecstatic. After saying this, he raised his head and let out a roar. Then, his body shook, and his original human form instantly changed into an almost illusory and ferocious heavenly demon. This ferocious heavenly demon's body was as big as 10,000 feet. Its whole body was like a black fog. In the blink of an eye, it drifted away, rushed into the encirclement, and shrouded one of the fortresses. It was going to start a crazier plundering and devouring. Clearly, this heavenly demon wanted to use this crazily devouring to break through to the middle stage of the immortal realm, the peak of the immortal realm, or even the marquee immortal realm. If this was really the case, no matter what, he would not be able to survive today. Boom. Rumble, the sound of explosions and miserable howls resounded in this corner of the void. Some of the battleships were firing, but the battleships were retreating. Obviously, the commanders in the battleships were extremely afraid and did not dare to let this ferocious heavenly demon get close to them. Seeing this, Yi Xian finally made his move. He could not sit still and watch Tuoba Linfeng devour his troops in front of him as if they were resources to strengthen himself. Heavenly Demon Blade. I didn't expect it to fall into your hands after escaping from the back of the giant void tortoise. This is good. I have obtained the inheritance of the giant tortoise. It is my duty to suppress this heavenly demon blade. To you and me, this battle is like fate. It's time. Chapter 4105. The demonic blade was a primordial treasure. It belonged to the supreme-level heavenly demon from the opposing camp in the primordial era. In the primordial war, the primordial supreme heavenly demon left this blade on the back of the void giant tortoise, the supreme-level powerhouse on his side, in a sneak attack. Moreover, the heavenly demon seemed to have had a fierce battle with the void giant tortoise. No one knew whether he was dead or alive, but the void giant tortoise was severely injured. Perhaps the celestial demon had used some special method in that battle, resulting in the celestial demon blade remaining on the back of the spatial colossal tortoise in the long years that followed, as if it was a seal that suppressed the tortoise. However, the void giant tortoise was still a supreme-level existence. Even if it was severely injured, even if the heavenly demon had used some other unknown means, even if the demonic blade had been left on its back and had never been forced out, however, the void giant tortoise did not die because of this. Although the void giant tortoise's recovery was delayed because of the demonic blade, and it was in a bad state due to its serious injuries, the demonic blade, which was originally a primordial treasure, had actually been damaged in such a long time of stalemate. Even when it was in the hands of Tuoba Linfeng not long ago, the demonic blade had recovered slightly because of the repeated devouring and stripping. However, it was still far from being fully recovered. This could be seen from the gaps that covered its ferocious blade. After being refined by Yi Xian several times, the withered demon blade was now a starry sky treasure. The magic treasures of the primordial era were different from the magic treasures refined in the current era. In the primordial era, the most powerful were the primordial treasures, and the second most powerful were the primordial treasures. Of course, there was also the primordial treasures of the primordial era, such as the Shinong Cauldron and the Netherworld Cauldron. This level of existence was rare even among the primordial treasures. In the current era, the most powerful were the Starry Sky treasures, and the second most powerful were the primordial treasures. Basically, the most powerful Starry Sky treasures of the current era were at most on par with the second most powerful primordial treasures of the primordial era. After all, one was refined in the current era, while the other had existed since the distant primordial era. The former lacked the accumulation of time, while the latter had the baptism of a long period of time. It was normal for contemporary treasures to be one grade lower than the desolate era treasures of the same grade. In other words, if the withered demon blade that Yi Xian refined in his hands was compared to the sky demon blade that was passed down from the primordial era into Tuoba Linfeng's hands, the power of the two was roughly equal. It could be said that the battle between Tuoba Linfeng and Yi Xian was a fated battle between the two of them, as well as a battle between the withered demon blade and the heavenly demon blade, the two supreme fierce blades that belonged to the current era and the primordial era. At this moment, following Tuoba Linfeng's provocative actions, destroying dozens of starry sky fortresses in the blink of an eye, Yi Xian was enraged. With a flip of his hand, the withered demon blood blade was already in his hand. Screech! With a sneer, Tuoba Linfeng suddenly waved his right hand. The sky demon blade that was originally in his right hand instantly shot out, and a ferocious roar filled with endless ferocity rang out. In the next moment, from the heavenly devil blade, a huge blade spirit roared out. It was pitch black all over and stood on its hind legs. However, its body looked like that of a bull. There were 2 horns on its huge head and a pair of sharp black bone wings on its back. Behind its back was a pair of sharp black bone wings that glowed with a cold light. An extraterrestrial demonic beast. This extraterrestrial demonic beast was the ferocious spirit of the Sky Demon Blade. In the past, it was killed by the Sky Demon, and its ferocious spirit was sealed in the Sky Demon Blade. It had existed for an unknown number of years. A ferocious aura gushed out from its body, turning into a black sky demon evil chi that enveloped its body as if it was solid. At this moment, this sky demon ferocious spirit that was refined from the extraterrestrial demonic beast's ferocious spirit appeared above the blade of the Sky Demon Blade. It shot out at a shocking speed. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian was calm and fearless. The corner of his mouth twitched, and there seemed to be a scornful light bursting out from his eyes. You want to compete with Yi Xian's battle weapon blade spirit? Come on. With a cold smile, his figure did not rush up. Like Tuoba Lin Feng, he still stood there. The two seemed to have reached some kind of tacit understanding. In this battle, they would compete with the battle weapon first. Before he finished speaking, Yi Xian suddenly flipped his right hand. The withered demon blood blade that had been trembling violently in his hand for a long time, instantly rushed out like a monkey and shot out. Screech, as it rushed out, a ferocious roar rang out. Because of its extreme speed, the withered demon blood blade had turned into a blood-black light. Above the blade spirit, the withered demon, also appeared. This was clearly an Outerium ferocious devil that he'd never seen before. It similarly stood on 2 legs, and its entire body was covered in fine blood-green scales. There was even a long tail behind its thighs that was streamlined and very thick, and the numerous barbed spikes on it looked extremely shocking. As for its head, it looked like a wolf or tiger. It had a pair of ferocious blood-red fangs. There was a single horn on its head that was as red as blood. Although there were no wings on its back, it was covered with sharp bone spurs that were slightly curved. It made people feel cold just by looking at it. The 2 extraterrestrial beasts were both in the state of energy. Moreover, they clearly did not belong to this world. At least, they had never been seen in the 3 main starry skies of this world. Even the indigenous ferocious beasts that Yi Xian brought out from the source of all evil star field, and the caged ferocious beasts that had now arrived in the first universe's demon territory, there was absolutely no existence of the same kind. Just by looking at their appearance, it was already shocking enough. They were even more terrifying than ferocious beasts. They could definitely be called extraterrestrial demons. The speed of these 2 extraterrestrial demons was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they had crossed the distance of 1,000,000 li between Yi Xian and Tuoba Lin Feng. With continuous rumbling sounds, they were engaged in close combat in the blink of an eye. On both sides of the battlefield, Yi Xian and Tuoba Lin Feng both stopped. They were not in a hurry to participate in the battle. This battle belonged to the 2 supreme ferocious blades. From the beginning, it had risen to the height of a battle between blade spirits. It was extremely dangerous, but it was also a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This was because blade spirits were existences that could strengthen themselves by devouring each other, achieving the goal of evolution and transformation. No matter if it was Yi Xian or Tuoba Lin Feng, they both hoped that the blade spirit within their battle weapons would be able to win this battle. If the withered demon were to win this battle, then Yi Xian's withered demon blood blades might would greatly increase. If the heavenly demonic beast won and devoured the withered demon, then the heavenly demonic blade in Tuoba Lin Feng's hand that had yet to be fully repaired would most likely be restored by a large portion. When that time comes, the power of the blade would definitely skyrocket. Roar! Screech! Roars and howls shook the heavens. As the battle between the two blade spirits escalated, the space of several 100,000 li in the central region was shrouded by the black demonic qi and the dark red withered demon blood qi. Even Yi Xian and Tuoba Lin Feng could not see the details of the battle. Chapter 4106. Roar. Screech. An earth-shattering roar rang out. The black demonic qi that had originally enveloped hundreds of thousands of miles of space in the central territory suddenly went berserk. Then, it quickly condensed inwards. In the blink of an eye, only the dark red demonic qi of the withered demonic qi that enveloped this space was left, but because of the existence of the withered demonic aura, everything in the central territory battlefield could not be seen clearly. It was impossible to know what was happening inside. At this moment, whether it was Yi Xian or Tuoba Lin Feng, their hearts were in their throats. They were quite nervous. Because they did not know what the sudden disappearance of the black demonic aura of the withered demonic aura meant. Did it mean that the demonic beast was defeated or that the withered demonic aura was devoured? In the midst of the slight uneasiness, the final result quickly appeared. Screech, another screech sounded. This time, in the central territory battlefield void, the dark red demonic aura of the withered demonic aura that covered hundreds of thousands of miles began to condense inwards rapidly. The scene in the void was instantly revealed. The two demonic beasts appeared in the sight of Yi Xian and Tuoba Lin Feng almost at the same time. The only difference was that the withered demonic beast with a single horn was still standing in the void. Although its body was full of hideous wounds, its aura was still strong and fierce. On the other hand, the demonic beast had already lost its breath. Its huge body was torn into two halves. It was held by the withered demonic beast in its left and right hands. The withered demonic beast was stuffed into its ferocious bloody mouth. After all, it was not a real body of flesh and blood. It was a blade spirit that existed in the form of energy. Therefore, although the demonic beast's body looked like it was 10,000 feet tall, it was completely devoured by the withered demonic beast in an instant. Not even a single black hair was left. Xiao! At this moment, the demonic blade that had been hovering in the sky above the battlefield of the two demonic beasts also shot towards the withered demonic beast at the same moment the demonic beast was devoured. It was directly swallowed into the withered demonic beast's stomach and disappeared. All of this happened too quickly. Tuoba Lin Feng, who was standing 1,000,000 miles away, didn't even have time to react. The heavenly demon blade, which he regarded as a supreme ominous weapon, was no longer seen. Such a scene made Tuoba Lin Feng's body tremble violently. His expression changed. His eyes were filled with resentment as he stared at the withered demonic blade spirit in the void. Evil beast, how dare you swallow this emperor's weapon? Can you digest it? This kind of result was unacceptable to Tuoba Lin Feng. In a fit of anger, he roared on the spot, and with a flash of his figure, he shot towards the battlefield in the central territory. As he roared, a greedy glint flashed across his eyes. He actually wanted to personally take action to suppress the withered demon blade and seize Yi Xian's withered demon blood blade. Obviously, this guy was greedy. Seeing that Yi Xian's withered demonic blade could even swallow the ancient treasure, the demonic blade, he wanted to shamelessly steal it while Yi Xian was unprepared. Your opponent is this Yi. You can't fight, so you want to steal it. Don't you think it's a bit embarrassing? Yi Xian sneered. As he spoke, he urged the withered demonic blade spirit to return to its nest. The huge withered demonic blade spirit drilled into the withered demonic blade hovering above his head. Then, he waved his hand and took it into his undying world. At the same time, Yi Xian raised his left hand and pointed at Tuoba Lin Feng, who was 1,000,000 miles away. He was only at the peak of the 9th rank of the Star Lord state. Even if he activated the true form of the demonic ape and performed the 5th transformation of the 9 demonic ape transformations bloodline, he would only be able to reach the 1st rank of the Realm Lord state. There was still a big gap between him and Tuoba Lin Feng, who was already an immortal being. Since that was the case, activating the demonic ape bloodline didn't make much sense. Instead, it would expose the identities of the other peerless geniuses, which was unwise. Therefore, Yi Xian decided to use the ancient Yiksha's bloodline ability, the Heaven-Falling Bow. Even though he was only at the peak of the 9th level of the Star-Lord realm, the bloodline ability was too powerful. It consumed a lot of his cultivation, mental power, physical strength, and even vitality. If he condensed all of that into one attack, he could kill an immortal being even though he was only a peak Star-Lord. At this moment, as he raised his left hand, a golden light suddenly burst forth from Yi Xian's originally empty left palm. The golden bow in the form of energy appeared once again without any suspense. At both ends of the simple and ferocious bow, two humanoid creatures that formed a semi-arc bow opened their mouths wide in anger. A bowstring that was clearly made of countless fine golden threads twisted together extended from the wide mouths of the two roaring creatures at the same time. Very soon, it condensed into a bowstring. On it, there was a golden energy arrow quietly appearing. Tuoba Linfeng, you've been struggling at death's door for so long. Today, it's time for you to die. As the words came out of his mouth, strands of strange golden brilliance burst out from the depths of Yi Xian's eyes. He raised his right hand and pinched the tail of the energy arrow that was already on the bowstring. Suddenly, he pulled the bowstring to the fullest. Wang! A rapid trembling sound rang out as the energy bow in Yi Xian's hand instantly emitted a blazing golden light. In the blink of an eye, it quickly condensed and poured into the arrows on the bowstring without missing a single drop. It whistled through the air and instantly traversed the endless void, bringing with it a terrifying aura that seemed capable of destroying the heavens and the earth. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived in front of Tuoba Linfeng. This is the Heaven-Falling Bow. Sure enough, it's all because of you, Screech. Boom! At this moment, Tuoba Linfeng's eyes widened in an instant. All the hairs on his body stood up. His figure stopped abruptly in the void as he let out a monstrous roar filled with unwillingness. At this moment, he was finally sure of Yi Xian's identity. He was both Prince Xian and young Master Linghu, whom he had always hated, as well as a few other peerless geniuses. Unfortunately, it was all too late. Along with Tuoba Linfeng's unwilling roar, a series of deafening booms suddenly exploded without warning. At this moment, the whole world seemed to be shaking slightly, as if doomsday was coming. The earth was shaking and the mountains were shaking. Yi Xian's current strength was only at the peak of the 9th rank of the Star-Lord state. Chapter 4107. Boom! A huge rumble rang out. The vast expanse of space several 100,000 kilometers ahead was completely swept away by the terrifying energy that spread out. There were even a lot of fine cracks in the void, as if the void had been a calm pool of water, but then a huge rock had been thrown into it. Water splashed everywhere, and ripples spread out. A strong sense of weakness assaulted Yi Xian's heart. That attack, the energy arrow of the Heaven-Falling Bow, instantly took away almost 70% of all the energy in his body except for his vitality. Even though he was at the peak of the 9th rank of the Star-Lord state, he still couldn't withstand such an attack. This kind of situation also made one's footsteps unsteady. Although the price he had to pay for the attack wasn't small, it was still bearable for Yi Xian. Of course, what was more important was the result of the arrow. Although Tuoba Linfeng had become an undying being and had a mysterious heavenly devil body, the Fallen Sky Bow was the only bloodline ability of the Desolate Era Supreme Yiksha, which was extremely lethal. At this moment, Yi Xian recklessly shot out this arrow. When the golden-purple energy arrow exploded on Tuoba Linfeng's body, even his strange heavenly demon body couldn't withstand it. In the blink of an eye, it was as if it was unstoppable, carrying a strong sense of unwillingness and monstrous resentment as it completely melted. For flying ashes, after a breath of time, the surging energy in front of him quickly entered a period of calmness. However, Tuoba Linfeng's figure had completely disappeared, and not even the slightest trace of his aura could be found. Yi Xian's heart, which had been hanging in his throat the entire time, finally settled down. He was indeed very concerned about the result of the arrow. This was because Tuoba Lin Feng was too dangerous. In less than a year, the young master of the Tuoba family, who was casually beaten up by Yi Xian, had grown to break through to the immortal realm. According to Yi Xian's estimates, if he was allowed to continue growing at such a terrifying speed, it would only take him 2 to 3 years at most. This person's cultivation would probably reach the Undying Emperor level, or even stronger. That was absolutely shocking. Even Yi Xian was afraid of it. Every time he thought of it, he would feel a chill down his spine. After all, even the entire demon race, which had existed for tens of thousands of years, only one ancestor of the entire race had become an undying emperor. However, Tuoba Lin Feng, because of his terrifying universe zombie bloodline, was very likely to become an undying emperor in just a few years. That was simply terrifying. In addition, this guy had a heavenly devil body, which was unpredictable. This time, it could only be considered a pleasant surprise. They had blocked him in the zombie lair and forced him out. If not for that, with Yi Xian's means, it was almost impossible to find him in the boundless space of the 3 main planes. It could be said that if he missed the opportunity to kill him today, Yi Xian would definitely regret it. Because the next time he wanted to find Tuoba Lin Feng, it would be as difficult as ascending to the heavens, but it would not be too far off. Since Yi Xian entered the space environment, he had encountered countless opponents in the past 2 or 3 years. He had even killed several undying old monsters. There was also Heaven's Eye, who had a transcendent status and was on the same level as the headless infant corpse. Yi Xian had indirectly fought with him several times. Even so, Tuoba Lin Feng was still ranked in the top 3 in Yi Xian's heart. After all, when he was at the Heavenly War Empire's Heavenly War Star, he was clearly sure that he had killed Tuoba Lin Feng. However, he never expected that so many unforeseen events would occur later on. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but sigh endlessly. Fortunately, Tuoba Lin Feng had been killed in the end. This time, Yi Xian was extremely confident. He'd always had strong confidence in the overbearing might of the Heaven's Fall Bow because it had never disappointed him. Besides the headless infant corpse, this was absolutely Yi Xian's greatest trump card, and it even surpassed the Farmer God Cauldron. At this moment, with the death of the zombie emperor, Tuoba Lin Feng, Yi Xian's heart that was hanging in his throat was completely confirmed. Although the interior and exterior of the Heavenly River Star were still not peaceful, even in the void of the universe outside the planet's atmosphere, the battlefield stretched for millions of miles. Even though the zombie emperor, Tuoba Lin Feng, had perished, there were still a few 100 million low-level corpse slaves, over 1 million Black Hole Realm elite zombie soldiers, over a few thousand Universe Realm zombie battleships, over 100 Region Lord Realm zombie commanders, and 4 mid-stage Sempiternal Realm zombie beasts wreaking havoc. However, as far as Yi Xian was concerned, these zombies were nothing. There was no need to mention the other elite zombie soldiers, generals, and commanders. Even the 4 mid-stage Neverlife Realm zombie beasts weren't taken seriously by him. At the very least, no matter how formidable these fellows were, they couldn't compare to Tuoba Lin Feng, who possessed a true heavenly devil physique that was capable of a myriad of changes. Once they fled, then it was utterly impossible to follow them. So long as they continued to lie dormant, then it would be impossible to even find a trace of them. However, what he never expected was that Tuoba Lin Feng's complete death, to him, was equivalent to resolving a knot in his heart, but at the same time, it also represented a true monstrous calamity. In an instant, without any warning, it suddenly descended. Roar! Roar! Screech! Almost at the same instant that Tuoba Lin Feng's heavenly devil physique was blasted apart by the golden energy arrow of the fallen sky bow, and was completely annihilated, an incomparably mournful roar of zombies suddenly resounded from all over the distant void around Sky River Star. Boom! 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 Before Yi Xian could react to what had happened, along with the shocking roar of zombies, a large number of roars and explosions resounded like a tide. All of this happened so suddenly that even Yi Xian was stunned. Then, a flash of insight flashed through his mind, and his expression instantly changed. When he turned his head to look, the scene that entered his eyes instantly confirmed the guess that had surfaced in his heart. At this moment, an extremely strong sense of crisis instantly enveloped his heart, causing him to not think too much about it. Almost as if it was a conditioned reflex, he directly waved his hand and activated the divine cauldron. The Shinnon cauldron that was stored in the undying world within his body. Body explosion. Boundless body explosion. His gaze swept across, from near to far, almost covering the entire sky and earth. Chapter 4108. Screech, bang. 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 Along with the frenzied screeches of the zombies in the universe, endless banging sounds swept over like a tide. In an instant, the cosmic void that was millions of kilometers away from Sky River Planet's atmosphere had transformed into a land of evil and deadly poison. Such a scene was too horrifying. Even Yi Xian, who had experienced many large-scale battles in the past year, had never seen such a terrifying scene. In this cosmic void that was millions of kilometers in circumference, there were originally hundreds of millions of corpse slaves, over 1 million Black Hole Realm zombie soldiers, over 10,000 Universe Realm zombie battleships, over 100 Domain Lord Realm zombie commanders, and 4 mid-stage Sempiternal Realm zombies. Giant beasts. But at this moment, as the zombie emperor, Tuoba Linfeng, was completely annihilated, these corpse slaves, zombie elite soldiers, generals, commanders, and even the 4 Sempiternal Realm zombie beasts all exploded. Without exception, all of them exploded, and the zombie poison and pus in their bodies splattered out and spread throughout the entire void. This scene caused Yi Xian to instantly feel deep self-blame in his heart. He should have expected this scene because the entire zombie army in the universe was actually born because of Tuoba Linfeng. If the zombie army in the universe was compared to a special race, then Tuoba Linfeng, as the zombie emperor, was clearly the blood of this race. The progenitor of the bloodline. Moreover, the zombie race in the universe clearly had some kind of extremely strict bloodline hierarchy, and this kind of hierarchy led to an unknown bloodline connection between the zombies and the universe. To put it simply, they were bound together for good or ill. Of course, there was absolutely only one existence that could affect the entire race's reputation, and it was Tuoba Linfeng, who had always been the bloodline of the zombie race in the universe. All the other zombies in the universe, including the 4 mid-stage Sempiternal Realm zombie beasts, the poison in their bodies came from Tuoba Linfeng. It could be said that the death of any other existence in this race would not have any effect on the existence and bloodline connection of the entire race, even if the 4 Sempiternal Realm zombie beasts suddenly died. But Tuoba Linfeng was different. Once he died and was completely annihilated, it was equivalent to a self-destruct device in the bloodline of this race being fully activated. It was precisely because of this reason that after Tuoba Linfeng, who was regarded as the bloodline source of the zombie race in the universe, was shot down by Yi Xian with a single arrow and completely annihilated, the entire zombie race that had evolved because of the zombie poison in his body was completely cut off from the bloodline source. What happened next was that the self-destruct device in the bloodline was triggered. All the zombies in the universe did not even have the ability to resist, and they instantly exploded and died. This was originally a good thing. With all the universe zombies gone, this difficult intergalactic war could be said to have come to an end. In particular, the explosion and death of the 4 mid-stage Sempiternal Realm zombie beasts was of great significance. Otherwise, even if Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher, Gong Huaji, and Long Shan Tang took action, they would have to spend a lot of energy, and even pay the huge price of losing an immortal realm old monster. But at the same time, such a scene was actually a disaster, a catastrophe whose consequences were almost impossible to predict. Although all the hundreds of millions of zombies in the universe had exploded and died, the large amount of zombie poison and pus that sputtered out of their bodies was a huge malignant tumor. Yes, the corpse Emperor Tuoba Lin Feng had indeed been annihilated, which meant that the bloodline of the zombie race in the universe had completely disappeared. Some kind of brand related to Tuoba Lin Feng that remained in the poison in the bodies of all the zombies in the universe had disappeared. But the zombie poison did not disappear because of this. Once the poison infected other humans or other flesh and blood creatures, a new zombie race in the universe would soon be born again. There might even be more than one. Hundreds of millions of zombies in the universe had all exploded. A large amount of zombie poison and pus covered the universe void within a radius of millions of miles. In just a moment, it was unknown how many powerhouses in the universe who did not have protective measures were caught off guard and infected by the sputtering poison. The zombie poison had spread. Even Yi Xian could not save these people. Soon, a horrible zombie transformation would occur. And if this situation was not stopped immediately, the final consequences would be unimaginable. The result of such a large amount of zombie poison and pus was that the entire human race in the third universe would face a life and death crisis because of the rapidly spreading zombie poison. Although Yi Xian was not wrong, Tuoba Lin Feng had to be killed, otherwise, there would be endless troubles. Even the initial birth of him, the zombie emperor, was not the responsibility of Yi Xian. It was the work of the real young master Ling Hu had fallen long ago. It was him who brought an immortal and imperishable bead from the Yin demon clan in the second universe and crushed it in the Shinong cauldron to poison it, leading to what happened later. All of this was born. But Yi Xian always had a kind of self-blame in his heart. He thought that whether it was the real young master Ling Hu had made a move to cause all of this, or now that he had killed the zombie emperor Tuoba Lin Feng, it had inadvertently caused a new disaster. He might have made an unintentional mistake, but he had to bear some responsibility. But now was obviously not the time to blame himself. Time was too tight. He had to immediately find a way to solve all of this and curb the spread of the zombie poison. In order to make up for his mistake and to stop the spread of the zombie poison, Yi Xian did not hesitate to directly wave his hand and summon the Shinong cauldron. In this way, his other identities would undoubtedly be exposed in an instant, but at this time, he had no time to care about it. Xiao. As the Shinong cauldron was summoned, it crossed the void and appeared in the form of a huge superstar. Yi Xian's figure suddenly flashed, and he had already arrived at the mouth of the cauldron filled with 9-colored fog. His figure bobbed up and down in the dense fog. Then he waved his hand, and in an instant, the Shinong 7-colored flame rushed out of the cauldron like a majestic river. In the blink of an eye, it divided into 4 and shot away in 4 different directions. This scene was like the 7-colored Milky Way hanging in the 9 heavens, and it was rapidly spreading in 4 directions to the surroundings. The root of the Shinong exotic flame was in the flame pool at the bottom of the volcano in the central region of the space inside the Shinong cauldron. As long as the source of the exotic flame in the flame pool was not extinguished, the 7-colored flame that gushed out of the cauldron would be endless. Chapter 4109. Ah, bang bang. Roar. In the air, as all the zombie slaves, elite zombie soldiers, generals, and commanders exploded, a cloud of zombie toxins and disgusting, colorful liquid splashed out in all directions. Some people were affected immediately, whether it was in the inner or outer battle circles. At this moment, in addition to a large number of Starry Sky battleships fighting fiercely, there were also some Starry Sky powerhouses fighting with their cultivation base, exposing their bodies to the void. Some of these Starry Sky powerhouses had activated their defensive magic treasures, covering their bodies with a layer of light curtain, or were inside a nearly sealed defensive armor. These existences, like the Prince's fans, the Federation people, and the Starry Sky powerhouses inside the starships, were temporarily spared and weren't immediately infected by the zombie toxins. However, there were also some who didn't have such defensive measures at all. The result was obvious. When the zombies around them suddenly exploded, a large amount of zombie poison and pus spread out, and they were infected at the first moment. Miserable howls sounded almost instantly, and they could be heard everywhere in the void. Some of the Starry Sky powerhouses were contaminated with too much zombie toxins, and they were almost drenched like a rat in soup. The stench was overwhelming, and there was almost no way to deal with it, and they began to turn into zombies directly. Some of the infected didn't start to turn into zombies in a short time due to the small amount of zombie toxins on their bodies, but their bodies were obviously feeling it. When they saw their companions who were originally fighting side by side quickly turning into zombies, they couldn't bear it anymore. In desperation, they took advantage of the fact that the zombies hadn't completely turned into zombies, and they directly exploded. Tragic. It was too tragic. Although the Universe Zombie Army under Tuobalingfing's command had been completely annihilated, along with the Zombie Emperor, the source of this Universe Zombie bloodline, he had also disappeared. But at this moment, with the outbreak of the zombie toxins, the new Universe Zombies, in a short time, were discovered again. Moreover, these Universe Zombies that had just appeared were different. They were all first-generation zombies, and each of them belonged to the source of their bloodline. This was because they were infected with a pure, undying, indestructible poison that didn't have the aura of any other creature. If these newly infected and zombified universe zombies were to break out of the encirclement, a large number of universe zombies would soon appear in the third universe of the human race. None of them had any bloodline inheritance relationship with each other. It was simply impossible to eliminate them through cleaning and annihilation. There were even a few universe-grade Starry Sky powerhouses in the periphery of the battlefield. They were caught off guard by the overwhelming zombie toxins and immediately turned into zombies. In the blink of an eye, several universe-grade first-generation universe zombies appeared. They were definitely a few of the biggest tumors. Because they were already so powerful when they were first infected with the corpse poison, they weren't far from the immortal realm. If they weren't killed immediately, after this battle, they would probably evolve to the immortal realm very quickly. It wouldn't even be long before they became Marquis or Emperor Immortals. Seeing this scene and thinking of the terrifying consequences of such a situation, Yi Xian's eyes suddenly narrowed. He immediately shouted, "Old Man Mosquito Butcher, you guys immediately kill those universe-grade zombies. Once they break out, the next time we meet them, it might be a terrifying Marquis Undying Corpse Emperor." Hearing this, Old Man Mosquito Butcher didn't have much of a reaction. After all, his original body wasn't weak. A conservative estimate was that he was at least an Emperor Immortal. However, the three old men, Gong Huaji, Long Shan Tang, and Elephant Fox Martin, were so scared that they trembled all over. With their understanding of the universe's zombies, they naturally knew that Yi Xian wasn't exaggerating. The speed at which this kind of terrifying creature evolved was indeed so fast that it made one's hair stand on end. The corpse emperor that was killed earlier was merely a descendant of the Tuoba family of the Heavenly War Empire. Not even. It had only been half a year, but it had already soared to the immortal realm. In addition, they had seen the four zombie beasts transform from sector lords to immortal beasts in the blink of an eye by devouring each other. There was absolutely no room for carelessness. If those zombies, who were at least universe-grade at the beginning, escaped, they would definitely become Marquis Immortals in a short time. With ferocious expressions, the four immortal realm old monsters immediately took action. They spread out and began to hunt in the inner and outer circles of the battlefield. They specifically targeted those who were above the Star Lord level and had already been infected by the zombie poison. As long as they set their eyes on a target, they would show no mercy, no matter who they were or which force they came from, even if they were their own subordinates. They would definitely smash them into pieces and completely eliminate the potential threat they represented. Huff. On the other side, Yi Xian's figure stood at the mouth of the Shenong cauldron that was like an enormous star. The power of the nine-colored fog floated up and down, and from time to time, his eyes would emit strands of light. He was completely focused on controlling the boundless seven-colored flames that poured out from the cauldron and shot them towards the edge of the entire void battlefield. Go! Faced with such a terrifying situation that was almost out of control, the only thing Yi Xian could rely on was the seven-colored flames in the Shenong cauldron. Only the invincible Shenong flames could refine all the zombie poison and burn away all evils in the world. Nothing else would work in such a situation. Such a calamitous situation was no longer something that could be controlled by the strength of one's cultivation. One had to rely on special treasures to activate the power of the field inside the cauldron in order to achieve a suppressive effect. Of course, if it was in existence at the level of the headless infant corpse, it would be a different story. At the same time, Yi Xian took out the Shenong cauldron and directly waved his hand to roll out a large sea of seven-colored flames like a sea of flames from the cauldron. The flames spread out in all directions at an extremely fast speed. Around the battlefield, in a large number of starry sky warships, countless fans of the prince, citizens of the Federation, and starry sky powerhouses from all over were stunned for a few moments. Soon, they shuddered and then cried out involuntarily, "Heavens, what did I just see? Am I blind? That's the Medicine King's divine cauldron. What happened? Isn't that young Master Linghu's thing? No, it should be the demon's younger brother, Mo Jinfeng." He had already admitted the fact that the five great evildoers were one. I have a frightening guess that just popped up in my mind. I can't get rid of it no matter how hard I try. Fellow cultivators, do you think I'm crazy? Chapter 41:10. As the Shenong cauldron was summoned by Yi Xian with a wave of his hand, the secret of his identity and all the details were completely and helplessly revealed at this moment. Among the younger generation of the current world, there were a total of 7 existences known as peerless geniuses that had appeared out of nowhere. Originally, everyone thought that these 7 peerless geniuses belonged to the human race and the demon race. The identities of young Master Linghu, young Master Netherworld, mechanical war god Xiao Baofeng, and little primordial demon ape were attributed to Mo Jinfeng, the younger brother of the demon race, giving him the beautiful name of being one of the 5 peerless geniuses. On the human race side of the third universe, the 2 peerless geniuses, Prince Xian and Invincible War God, were added to Yi Xian. As a commoner with no background, although he only fought for the title of being one of the 2 peerless geniuses, because of Prince Xian's 2 appearances, his battle results were too shocking. Yes. Therefore, compared to the 5 great monstrous geniuses, the halo above Yi Xian's head was even more intense than that of the devil's royal brother, Mo Yufeng. Moreover, even the ownership of the current era's great destiny was believed by countless powerhouses in the 3 main planes of the starry skies to belong to the human race because of Yi Xian's existence. However, no one expected that the final truth would be so shocking. It turned out that even the younger brother of the demon race, Mo Jinfeng, who was known as one of the 5 peerless geniuses, was just another identity of Yi Xian like Prince Xian and Invincible War God. What 5 peerless geniuses is one? What 2 peerless geniuses is one? None of them were complete. The final truth was only 6 words: 7 peerless geniuses is one. Young Master Linghu, young Master Netherworld, mechanical war god Xiao Baofeng, little primordial demon ape, Mo Jinfeng, invincible war god, Prince Xian, these 7 peerless monstrous geniuses were all just illusions. They only had one common original body, and that was Yi Xian. He was a commoner with no background behind him. Even his interstellar mercenary identity was only registered 2 or 3 years ago. At the time, Yi Xian had only been at the lowest level of the core realm. And yet, he had become a peak 9th rank Star Lord after only 1,000 days. He had also earned the reputation of being one of the 7 unparalleled geniuses with astounding achievements. He had wreaked havoc in almost all the 3 main planes of space. They were all pushing forward, sweeping and invincible. All of this was so shocking that after the sudden discovery of this shocking truth, the countless people of the Heavenly River Star and the vast battlefield that spanned millions of kilometers in the void, as well as the countless people of the Heavenly River Star on countless starships, were in danger of being shrouded by the zombie poison for a moment. Because they had all been temporarily forgotten. Everyone had sluggish expressions on their faces. It was as if their breathing had stopped, and all of them looked as if they had just been struck by lightning. In a certain space fortress, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru were the same. However, they had already known the secret, and were only a little surprised at the moment. They didn't expect the matter to be fully exposed so soon. Sigh, this guy is completely famous now. Everyone in the 3 universes knows him. Even the immortal state old monsters have to look up to him when they talk about him. Indeed. The 7 peerless geniuses are one. He's simply inhuman. Not only is this unprecedented, but there will also be no future generations. I really don't know how he did it. He's too good at causing trouble. Well, this guy won't be impetuous because of this, will he? Sister Ziying, we're all his people. Once this guy becomes famous, he won't abandon the 3 of us, right? The last sentence was said by Duanmu Xiaocha. Her face was full of worry, and coupled with these embarrassing words, it instantly made the purplish warbler and Zhao Qianru blush. After spitting in unison, they chased after her and hit her. On the other side, the 3 girls were playing around again. They were in a large fortress, and there was a sector lord guarding it. Naturally, they weren't afraid of the invasion of the zombie poison. At the same time, the countless Federation citizens and space warriors in the starships on the battlefield came back to their senses after a short moment of daze. In an instant, cries of surprise rose like a tide. Heavens, the 7 peerless geniuses are one. This is simply inhumane. It has never happened before, and it will never happen again. Yi Xian is truly heaven-defying. Supreme peerless genius. He's definitely a supreme peerless genius. Since ancient times, he's the only one who's worthy of this title. I get it, I finally get it. No wonder he was able to instantly climb to the top of the Federation's contribution list as Prince Xian, and even have more than 180 billion contribution points. Everything was done in the first universe. Young Master Linghu, Young Master Hades, the primordial little devil ape, and the other identities, which one of them isn't infamous? Moreover, for the past year, he spent almost all of his time outside the 3rd universe of the human race. Even the Tianji clan was forced to migrate because of him. With such a battle record, if he can't get 1.8 trillion contribution points from the Federation. It would be strange if he gave up his contribution points. That's right. There's also the identity of the mechanical war god Xiao Baofeng. Back then, he was once conferred the title of Young Master of the Tianji clan by the Patriarch of the Tianji clan, De. This slap in the face was too loud. De didn't even have the face to meet people. Just this alone can be counted as at least 100 million Federation contribution points. In that case, 1.8 trillion isn't a lot. In fact, the contribution points he earned are far more than that. Don't forget that after he returned as the king, the data on the heavenly list went crazy. Yi Xian's ranking fluctuated up and down countless times. In the end, when he was at the top of the list with 1.8 trillion contribution points, he had already lost his contribution points. I don't know how many points were deducted. You can be willful when you're rich, but there's no other way. He's really too good at causing trouble. Although what he did was basically beneficial to the Federation, so he was counted as a contribution point. But there are also some that definitely harm the interests of the Federation. That's the reason for the deduction of contribution points. Don't forget, he even killed the immortal old monster of the myriad Luo Federation. Not to mention extorting from the 2 camps of the human race. It's been more than once. Phew, At the same time that countless cries of surprise resounded like a tide from the surroundings of the battlefield, Yi Xian waved his hand and summoned 4 boundless 7-colored seas of flames that poured out from the Shenong cauldron beneath his feet. Finally, they rushed to the edge of the battlefield, which was millions of kilometers away. Moreover, they immediately spread out. In just a dozen breaths, these 4 7-colored flames once again gathered at the edge of the battlefield. At this point, the entire void battlefield with a radius of millions of miles was basically surrounded by the 7-colored flames in the Shenong cauldron. Then, as Yi Xian's mind turned, the sound of flames suddenly became louder. The mottled light shield formed by the Shenong cauldron of 7-colored flames around the battlefield began to slowly and continuously shrink inward. Chapter 41:11. The entire void battlefield had a radius of 3 to 4 million square kilometers. Even though Yi Xian was a peak 9th-rank Star Lord and had the power of the Shenong cauldron, the Shenong flames had evolved into 7-colored flames. As a result, his power had long since increased greatly, and he was able to be activated even more thoroughly by Yi Xian. However, such a vast area was already his limit. It was safe to say that if the void battlefield had been hundreds of thousands of square kilometers wider, Yi Xian wouldn't have been able to completely surround it with the 7-colored flames leaking from the Shenong cauldron, even if he had fully activated the power of the Shenong cauldron. In fact, this void battlefield that spanned millions of kilometers was now surrounded by the 7-colored sea of flames that had suddenly leaked out from the Shenong cauldron. It was like a dumpling, forming a mottled screen of light that enveloped the entire area. But at this moment, as this huge light curtain slowly and continuously retracted, all the mutated zombies it touched along the way were not all suppressed without exception. This was understandable. After all, the scene was too big. The entire mottled light curtain covered millions of miles of the vast void, directly causing the power of the 7-colored flames sea to be greatly weakened. It was no pressure at all to deal with the zombie toxins and disgusting pus that had splashed everywhere due to the explosions of countless cosmic zombies. As the light screen of the sea of flames continued to shrink, the disgusting pus filled with zombie poison was squeezed out without any suspense. It was also slowly moving towards the center of the light screen where the Shenong cauldron was located beneath Yi Xian's feet. However, the new batch of universe zombies that had just completed zombification because they were contaminated with zombie venom, and the weaker ones were immediately blown away by the approaching flame sea light screen. Their entire bodies turned into zombie venom and pus, and were pushed toward the light screen area. However, some of the more powerful universe zombies were immediately burned and melted by the slowly retracting flame sea light curtain. In the end, because the flame sea light curtain's power was greatly weakened, even if only one of these universe zombies was left alive, they would still be able to escape from the flame sea light curtain. Even one of their heads could survive. At this time, the light curtain of the sea of flames had already arrived in front of them. It was as if these surviving space zombies had already avoided the light curtain of the sea of flames and had unknowingly escaped outside of the light curtain. Seeing this, Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher, Elephant Fox Martin, Gong Huaji, Long Shan Tang, and the other immortal old monsters changed their expressions instantly. Without hesitation, they rushed out of the light screen of the flames sea and appeared outside the light screen, guarding one side of the light screen. Then, each of them unleashed their great divine abilities and mercilessly pushed all the fish that had escaped the net forward. In the blink of an eye, they fell into the sea of flames again. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian, whose heart was in his throat, immediately heaved a sigh of relief. With these 4 immortal-level old monsters guarding the light screen of the flame sea, all the fish that escaped the net would be thrown back into the huge net formed by the Shenong 7-colored flame at the first possible moment. And these universe zombies were basically all seriously injured when the previous light curtain passed through their bodies. If similar injuries were to occur again, they would obviously not be able to withstand it. At most, they would be able to do it 3 or 4 times. In short, Yi Xian did not need to worry about this anymore. After retracting his gaze from the light curtain at the edge of the battlefield, Yi Xian was no longer distracted. He concentrated on controlling the power of the Shinong cauldron field under his feet. Time passed slowly. Unknowingly, more than 2 hours had passed. During this period of time, the light screen of the Sea of Flames that originally enveloped an area of 3 to 4 million kilometers was slowly but steadily shrinking. At present, the light screen of the Sea of Flames that looked like a giant ball of light had shrunk by less than half. It was only slightly more than 2 million kilometers wide. However, all the zombie toxins and disgusting pus were not missed. They were all covered in the light curtain and were still pushing toward the center of the Shinong cauldron. At this time, a large number of starships that were originally covered in the light curtain of the Flame Sea were now outside the light curtain. With Yi Xian's current cultivation and strength, as well as his control over the power of the Divine Gnome Cauldron domain after the Divine Gnome's strange flame grew to a 7-colored flame, the current Yi Xian was able to freely control the 7-colored Sea of Flames to carry out different attacks and effects. It was exactly because of that almost none of the starships that had been thrown out of the light beam because of the constriction of the light beam had been affected by it. Even if they were damaged, they were all caused in the chaotic space battles earlier. Moreover, when the light curtain of the Flame Sea passed by the surface of these starships, all the pus and zombie toxins that were stuck on the starships were taken away and firmly confined inside the light curtain, unable to escape, for the large number of Federation citizens and Starry Sky powerhouses who were inside the starships, but whose starships were outside the light curtain of the Flame Sea. Until now, they were truly safe. He could even step out of the starship without worrying that there were still remnants of the zombie virus in the universe of the Sea of Flames and light beams. In fact, there were indeed some Starry Sky powerhouses who walked out of the starships under their feet. At this moment, they were standing in the space of the universe outside the light curtain, staring blankly at the light curtain of the Flame Sea that was still shrinking inwards in front of them. Every one of them was in a daze. Everything that happened just now was just like a nightmare. When a huge number of cosmic zombies were born, when all the cosmic zombies, after the death of the zombie emperor Tuobalin Fong, exploded without any warning, turning the entire space they were in into a hopeless situation full of disgusting pus and zombie toxins, they really never thought that they would be able to stand unscathed outside the light curtain of the Flame Sea that blocked all the zombie viruses, like a spectator, leisurely looking at the thrilling scene in front of them. Time continued to pass. Unknowingly, more than 2 hours had passed. As the light curtain of the Flame Sea continued to shrink, its power was obviously increasing. Therefore, the speed at which the light curtain of the Flame Sea was shrinking naturally became faster and faster. In just a little more than 2 hours, the light curtain of the Flame Sea that was originally more than 2 million miles in diameter was now only tens of thousands of miles in diameter. At this time, all the starships that were not damaged in the previous chaotic battle had basically been thrown outside the light curtain of the Flame Sea. They were spread out in the space of the Flame Sea, but they were all like spectators, quietly standing in the space of the distance, silently watching. Chapter 41:12. Immortal and Indestructible Biomass Energy. Do you want to devour it immediately and start tempering your body? As the familiar system notification sounded in his mind without warning, Yi Xian was stunned on the spot. Then, his gaze fell on the zombie poison that was enveloped in the huge light screen of the Shinong Flame Sea. It looked colorful, but because it was gathered together, its color was extremely dark. Just a glance at it gave people a chill down their backs. This thing was actually called Immortal and Indestructible Biomass Energy. It could actually be devoured and have the effect of tempering one's body. Wasn't this the F*King zombie poison and pus? What kind of joke was this? As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian began to doubt the devouring system in his body for the first time. The content of the notification just now was really too strange. He was very familiar with the zombie poison and disgusting pus in front of him. Just now, he had seen with his own eyes how many Starry Sky powerhouses were infected by it. Infected and then directly turned into zombies. Under such circumstances, to make Yi Xian choose to unconditionally believe it, grit his teeth, and give an affirmative answer, and let the system devour these disgusting things. The psychological barrier was really not small. With this hesitant mentality, Yi Xian continued to control the field power of the Shenong cauldron to evolve and compress the zombie poison and disgusting pus in the surrounding void. Another 2 hours passed. The light screen of the Shenong Flame Sea, which was originally 10,000 miles in radius, had now shrunk to about 100 miles in diameter. In this 100 miles of void covered by the light screen of the Flame Sea, not a single starship could be seen at this moment. All the starships were pushed out of the light screen of the Flame Sea after being purified of the zombie poison on the starships by the light screen of the Flame Sea. The Federation citizens and Starry Sky powerhouses and the starships were completely safe. In fact, at this time, Yi Xian and the Shenong cauldron under his feet were actually already outside the light screen of the Flame Sea. The Shenong cauldron was now in its complete form, and its size was comparable to a superstar. As for the Flame Sea light screen that had shrunk to its current size, it was only 100 kilometers in diameter. At this moment, it was located in the void beside the Farmer God cauldron. Compared to the enormous Farmer God cauldron, it was simply an unremarkable little dot. On the surface of the sphere, which was only 100 miles in diameter, was a layer of colorful, translucent flame formed by a light screen. Inside the sphere, which was enveloped by this layer of flame, was a stagnant liquid that looked like a lake. It was all zombie venom and disgusting pus. Just as Yi Xian was hesitating on how to deal with this incomparably poisonous liquid ball, the system notification that had already appeared once before actually sounded out again without any warning. Ding! Congratulations to host. Discovered immortal indestructible bioenergy. Do you want to devour it immediately to temper your body? F***CK. Again. Yi Xian froze for a moment and hesitated. He was very familiar with the nature of the devouring system. Although the system would automatically send out a system notification whenever it encountered a resource that was beneficial to the system or the host of the system, it would ask whether or not to devour it. However, under normal circumstances, this kind of notification sound would only appear once. If the host refused or did not give any response, a similar system notification sound would not appear again in a short period of time. But now, in just a short period of time, the system notification asking Yi Xian whether or not to immediately devour this so-called immortal indestructible bioenergy had already appeared twice in a row. This could only mean one thing, and that was that this opportunity was extremely important. Moreover, from the fact that the effect of this object was to be used to temper the body by devouring, this importance was clearly targeted at Yi Xian himself, and not at the devouring system in his body. Since this was the case, Yi Xian had no choice but to take this seriously. He immediately suppressed the rejection in his heart and directly started searching and inquiring about this so-called immortal indestructible bioenergy in the database of the system. There was no relevant data before, but now that the system had come into contact with this immortal indestructible bioenergy, the database of the system had obviously been updated. Yi Xian easily found it and started flipping through it. After a short while, he finally understood. In the void beside the Shenong cauldron, this rainbow fireball with a diameter of 100 miles contained a huge amount of liquid. It was indeed zombie poison and disgusting pus, but at the same time, it was also the semi-finished product of the immortal indestructible bioenergy mentioned by the system. If he directly devoured it into his body now, the result was obvious: he would die a horrible death. However, if some of the harmful substances, such as certain toxins, were refined, its attributes and essence would change. If he devoured it, it would be one of the best resources to temper the body. He dared not say that it could be compared to the all-evil origin liquid, but after all, it was superior in quantity. Therefore, this was definitely a huge opportunity. After all, although these disgusting green liquids contain terrifying zombie toxins, they were formed by a large number of cosmic zombies after all. From a certain point of view, they were actually a kind of energy, just a little more special. Without a doubt, within the seven-colored flame sphere on the side of the Shinnon cauldron, there was a large pool of undying and indestructible biomass energy that had a diameter of 100 miles. If he were to completely refine and devour it, then Yi Xian's own cultivation would definitely increase by a large margin this time. At this thought, Yi Xian immediately became excited. This fortune was simply destined to belong to him. Although the undying and indestructible biomass was a good thing, how could an ordinary being refine such a huge chunk with a diameter of 100 miles without a primordial treasure such as the Shinnon cauldron? However, this problem did not exist for Yi Xian at all. With a thought, he immediately activated the power of the Shinnon cauldron under his feet. With a whoosh, an even more majestic rainbow fireball poured out from the mouth of the cauldron, shooting toward the liquid ball on the right that was completely enveloped by the light screen formed by the rainbow fireball, directly refining the harmful toxins. Now that the Shinnon exotic flames had grown to the height of the rainbow fireball, its power was no longer what it used to be. It was extremely powerful. Even this sea of zombie liquid poison that was 100 miles in radius only took a dozen minutes to completely refine the harmful toxins within it. At this time, not only did this liquid ball, which was originally 100 miles in radius, shrink to about half its original size, its color was no longer as disgusting. Instead, it emitted a brilliant rainbow radiance like the Shinnon exotic flames, looking like a dream. Chapter 41:13. It was not that Yi Xian was generous and was willing to share such a rare resource with others. It was just that this so-called undying and indestructible biomass energy was too special and could not be stored for future use. Moreover, this brilliant sea of seven-colored liquid was dozens of kilometers in radius. According to Yi Xian's deduction using the devouring system, he could not use it all by himself. At most, he could only use 30% of it. The second reason. Since that was the case, based on the principle of not wasting anything, he could only share this opportunity with the others. However, he was not in a hurry to persuade anyone to share such a good thing. Therefore, he simply waved his hand. Whoever wanted to come could come, and it did not matter if they did not. After saying this, Yi Xian did not pay any more attention to it. His entire body sank down and could no longer be seen. It looked as if he had been directly swallowed by this huge pool of seven-colored liquid. All of this happened too quickly. Among the large number of starships in the surrounding void, everyone thought that Yi Xian was refining the compressed zombie poison in the light curtain of the Sea of Flames. After all, the power of the seven-colored flame of the Shinnon cauldron was obvious to all. If it were not for this flame, the zombie poison would have filled the entire void. It was a vast expanse of the void. However, the unforeseen event happened so quickly. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xian, who was refining the zombie poison, jumped into the pool of zombie poison that was still dozens of kilometers in diameter. At the same time as he jumped, he even turned around and waved at the experts in the surrounding void. What did he say? That they wanted to come together. F***CK. Come my ass. This is a pool of zombie venom that can poison people to death. Have you gone crazy? He suddenly jumped into the pool to soak himself in zombie poison, and he actually invited his companions. As these thoughts flashed through their minds, the countless experts in the starships in the surrounding void were all dumbfounded. Especially when they saw Yi Xian jump into the sea of zombie poison and did not pop up again. It seemed that he had been poisoned in an instant and sunk into the depths of the sea of zombie poison. Most people were shocked, as if they had been struck by lightning. Their minds were in a complete mess. However, what no one expected was that in the face of such a strange and terrifying situation, there were actually people who were not afraid of death, or to be more precise, they were rushing to their deaths. What was even more surprising was that it was not just one person rushing to their deaths, but 3 people, and they were actually 3 women. Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. These 3 girls were originally in a large fortress from the heavenly underworld empire, but at this moment, they rushed out of the fortress at the same time. Without hesitation, they rushed toward the giant liquid sphere that drowned Yi Xian. The reason for this was that the three of them knew Yi Xian too well. If the liquid in this sphere that was dozens of miles in diameter was really disgusting pus and zombie poison, Yi Xian would definitely not jump into it. Moreover, he had waved and said those words at the end, which made the three girls even more certain. Of course, the most important reason was that the liquid was constantly being condensed by the light screen of the Sea of Flames. The three of them had stayed in the Shenong cauldron for a period of time, so they were more clear and confident about the magical effects of the Shenong unusual flame than anyone else in the outside world. And the power of the Shenong unusual flame at that time was obviously not just a little bit weaker than the current seven-colored flame. The Shenong unusual flame at that time was already so powerful, it was needless to say that it was now. Even the highly toxic zombie toxins and disgusting pus could be neutralized in a short period of time. As a result, the colorful liquid had turned into a colorful liquid. It was definitely a different kind of substance. The toxins had been neutralized, and it had become a good thing. Even Yi Xian, who had become a Star Lord, had jumped in without hesitation, not to mention the three of them. It had to be noted that they hadn't even reached the universe state yet. How could they miss such an opportunity? Plop! Plop! 3 soft sounds were heard. The three girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, jumped into the giant liquid sphere that was dozens of miles in diameter before anyone could react. Moreover, just like Yi Xian, who had jumped in earlier, his entire body was covered by the rainbow-colored liquid. Devouring. This scene happened too suddenly. In the surrounding space, within the starry sky battleships, a large number of cries of alarm sounded out. Many people were so scared that their faces turned pale. This was because they didn't understand Yi Xian, nor had they come into contact with the Shenong cauldron Shenong strange flame. At this moment, seeing this scene, the only thought in his mind was that these three girls were also crazy. They were tired of living and wanted to die, but they didn't choose a cleaner way. They actually jumped into this disgusting zombie's poison and pus. Oh my God! What did I just see? Are they all crazy? 4. In the blink of an eye, 4 people jumped into that lump of zombie venom one after another. This is definitely the rhythm of an old man hanging himself, the rhythm of a sick and tired of living. Well, I feel like vomiting. That's all zombie poison and pus. It's disgusting to look at from so far away, but they still jumped in. Do they think it's not disgusting enough? It's too scary. It's too crazy. It's over, it's over. My idols couldn't think straight and jumped into the zombie pus. The poison killed them. I don't want to live anymore. What a pity. It's really a pity. 3 pretty girls, but their brains are damaged. Sigh, it's a sin. Inside the immortal and indestructible bioenergy liquid sphere with a diameter of dozens of miles. Yi Xian, Xianyuan Ziying, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru, who had jumped in one after another, were all sitting cross-legged in the depths of the liquid bowl. Their eyes were tightly closed as they entered a state of cultivation. The moment they jumped in and came into contact with the colorful liquid, they already knew the benefits of this thing. They didn't need to actively absorb it at all. The colorful liquid had some kind of mysterious power that kept drilling into their bodies through their 1.08 billion pores. The feeling was quite wonderful. Their limbs, bones, muscles, bones, and blood, every inch of flesh, and every cell suddenly became active and cheerfully accepted the baptism of this mysterious power. Although there was still some pain, and it wasn't an ordinary pain, they could feel their flesh and blood cells becoming stronger almost every second. This kind of physical strength even led to the rapid improvement of the cultivation methods in their sea of consciousness, which was amazing. Chapter 41:14. At this moment, Yi Xian's heart was filled with joy. This kind of undying and indestructible biomass energy was too heaven-defying. Not only could it automatically drill into the body through the pores all over the body, but at the same time, it could temper and strengthen every inch of the body's cells. It also had a rapid effect on the cultivation in the sea of consciousness, which was far more effective than the hellish ant liquid and other quenching materials. The side effects were actually so mild. Although there was pain, it was really insignificant and not proportional to the gains. He even felt warm all over. But in this feeling, his cultivation strength and the strength of his body were constantly and rapidly increasing. It was a big gain. Time passed slowly. In the surrounding void, the starships did not leave but continued to watch. However, although some starry sky masters rushed out of the starships, they only stood in the void from a distance. No one continued to jump into the giant liquid. Inside the liquid. Of course, it was not that the starry sky masters like Naples from Triumph City did not believe in Yi Xian. They were all sure that this was a good luck, but now the young master and the 3 future mistresses were bathing together inside. Cough, cough, it was really not good to disturb them. Therefore, even if they wanted to jump in and get some benefits, they all resisted in the end. The 4 immortal realm masters, including the elephant fox ferret, Gong Huaji, and Long Shan Tang, were also standing in the void at this time. The former 3 stared at the liquid ball with a diameter of dozens of miles, flashing a dim light from time to time. Obviously, they were not calm at the moment. With the vision of the immortal realm masters, they could naturally see that this liquid ball was extraordinary. Although they did not know what it was, according to Yi Xian's previous actions and words, it was obviously something good. At this moment, the elephant fox ferret, Gong Huaji, and Long Shan Tang were hesitating whether they should also jump in and enjoy a cup of soup. You 3 old guys better be honest. It's not easy to make something good, so don't think about it. Can't you leave it to the younger generation? The wretched mosquito slayer, who was standing at the side, gave a timely warning. Furthermore, this thing was created by Xian using the Shenong unusual flame. He was the one who discovered and solved the zombie crisis on Tianhe planet. It's only right for him to enjoy the fruits of his labor alone. What's more, although this thing is extraordinary, it can't withstand the absorption of the 3 immortal realm masters. If you really jump in, I'm afraid Xian's fortune will be gone. If that's the case, then don't blame me for being rude. At the end of his words, Old Man Mosquito Butcher's eyes flashed and his tone turned harsh. Although he and the 3 old men had fought side by side just now, they were actually not on the same side. There was no need to be polite in this kind of situation. The Immortal Realm Master, with the Immortal Realm Master, with the Immortal Realm Master, with the Immortal Realm Master, the Immortal Realm Master with Mosquito Butcher. If the 3 of them really didn't listen to his advice and insisted on seizing Yi Xian's fortune, once Mosquito Butcher took action, it wouldn't be too difficult to stop the 3 of them together. Hearing his words, the Immortal Realm Master, Gong Huaji, and Long Shan Tang turned to look at each other and exchanged a look. In the end, they gave up, shook their heads, and smiled bitterly. They didn't do anything else. But they didn't leave. They still stood in the void around. Obviously, they were curious and wanted to stay to see the result. Soon, 4 hours passed. During this time, a group of Yi Xian's trusted subordinates from Triumph City led a Triumph Legion starship army of 1,000,000 battleships into the Tianhe planet through the space passage in the atmosphere of the Tianhe planet. Inside, it was very likely that there were still some fish that had escaped the net. They had to be cleaned up. In addition, this planet had always been the secret headquarters of Tuoba Lin Fang's Universe Zombie Legion. Who knows if he had left some sort of backup plan or something like that. This also needed to be investigated. The Triumph Legion that had entered the Tianhe planet would carry out a thorough search inside the planet. At the same time, the entire Tianhe planet would be disinfected to prevent any remnant of the zombie virus. Finally, there was the Starry Sky Superbrain, which was the intelligence center of the Tianhe planet's interstellar network. Yi Xian already knew that this starry sky superbrain had been zombified. Although it couldn't move and was still in the center of the Tianhe planet's interstellar network, it was an intelligent semi-living thing after all. Therefore, in order to prevent it from playing any tricks, someone must be sent to control it as soon as possible. When all of this unfolded in an intense yet orderly manner, Yi Xian, the purplish warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru had fallen into the intoxicated pleasure of the improvement in their cultivations and the strengthening of their bodies. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that it was extremely beautiful. After an unknown period of time, when the slight piercing pain throughout his body had vanished, and the rapid rise in his cultivation had finally stopped, Yi Xian's consciousness gradually cleared up, and he opened his eyes. At this instant, the familiar sound of system notifications actually resounded successively in his mind like tidewater. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through in the ancient void dimension technique. Current cultivation, first rank region Lord Realm. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through in the Qi and blood realm of the body. Current cultivation, first rank region Lord Realm. As the familiar sound of system notifications resounded in his mind, a wisp of astonishment appeared on Yi Xian's face because of his surprise, but it was quickly followed by wild joy that surged into his heart. For an entire minute, the sound of system notifications hadn't stopped resounding in his mind, and when Yi Xian was slightly stunned by them, the final sentence had finally arrived. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through in the ancient void dimension technique. Current cultivation, perfection and the 9th rank of region Lord Realm. Ding! Congratulations to host for breaking through in the vital blood realm of the physical body. Current cultivation, perfection and the 9th rank of region Lord Realm. Perfection and the 9th rank of region Lord Realm. My God! It's simply heaven-defying. Before this, his cultivation was merely at the perfection of the 9th rank of the Star-Lord realm. Yet now, he'd advanced 9 ranks successively and directly surmounted an entire realm to attain perfection in the 9th rank of Region Lord realm. It was a leap of an entire realm. Such a terrifying leap in strength was something that Yi Xian had only experienced once in the Tower of Ancient Inheritance within the inner city of the Eternal Dynasty. However, even that couldn't be compared to this. After all, Yi Xian's cultivation was still weak at that time. Yet now, he'd attained perfection in the 9th rank of the Star-Lord realm before the arrival of this fortune. Even if it was a leap of an entire realm, the difference in foundation was completely different. Chapter 41:15. Perfection of the 9th level of the Region Lord realm. In just a short few hours, Yi Xian's cultivation had risen explosively by an entire realm. Moreover, it was an explosive increase in both his cultivation and his vital energy. This was absolutely significant. After all, this was merely the strength of his main body in its normal state. Once he activated the Devil Ape bloodline within his body, he would be even stronger. Such a thought flashed through his mind, and he immediately activated the Devil Ape bloodline within his body. In an instant, the vital energy and blood within his body surged, and a 30-meter-tall ancient devil ape appeared out of thin air. It had 3 heads and 6 arms, and it possessed monstrous ferocity. It actually only rose by a small realm. I merely stepped into the first level of the Sector Lord realm. Yi Xian was instantly stunned when he sensed the strength of the ancient devil ape bloodline within his body. Merely a small realm of cultivation had risen explosively, and this was far beyond his expectations. Previously, when his main body was at the 9th level of the Star-Lord realm, the strength of the ancient devil ape bloodline true body was at the 5th level of the Region Lord realm. Once he executed the 9 devil ape bloodline true body and attained the 5th transformation, he would instantly attain the 1st level of the Sector Lord realm. Every single transformation would increase his strength by a small realm. Now that his main body had broken through once more and attained perfection of the 9th level of the Region Lord realm, according to convention, after activating the ancient Devil Ape bloodline, Yi Xian should be able to attain the 5th level of the Sector Lord realm. Once he entered the 5th transformation, his peak combat strength would attain the 1st level of the universe realm. But now, he'd clearly activated the ancient Devil Ape bloodline, yet his strength didn't rise by 5 small realms like before. Instead, it had been reduced to a single small realm. After a brief moment of shock, he roughly figured out the crux of the matter, and he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh bitterly. The reason why my cultivation and physical strength would rise greatly after activating the ancient Devil Ape bloodline is because of the amplification effect of the ancient Devil Ape bloodline. However, it is very clear that this sort of effect will continue to exist as one becomes stronger and stronger. However, it is absolutely impossible for it to always be this obvious. To put it simply, the amplification effect of the Devil Ape's bloodline towards one's strength was very obvious when one's cultivation was weak, so the improvement of one's strength was extremely great once it was activated. Yet now, I've already stepped into the perfection stage of the 9th rank of Region Lords, and I'm much stronger than before. So, the amplification effect of the Devil Ape's bloodline towards my strength is naturally not as obvious as it was in the past. The most direct effect of this is that while the improvement of one's cultivation is still the same after the bloodline is activated, the extent of it has decreased. It's far from what it used to be. Now that I've activated the ancient demonic ape bloodline, my strength has only increased by a small level. What about the 9 transformations of the demonic ape? Is it still possible to advance by a small level with each transformation? If this is still the case, then it won't be too disappointing. After all, with the addition of the Devil Ape's 5 transformations, when needed, my cultivation and strength can instantly increase by at least 6 small ranks. The further one goes, the stronger one's cultivation and strength will be. Usually, one small rank is very significant. 6. An instant increase of one's combat strength by a small rank is extremely impressive. As soon as he thought of this, he immediately shouted. 9 transformations of the demonic ape. First transformation. Along with Yi Xian's explosive roar, the size of the 30m tall ancient demonic ape suddenly increased while an indescribable bloodline energy instantly surged within its body, and it converged into a force that was like a tide. It greatly increased the vital blood and cultivation of the 3 true forms of the ancient demonic ape. In the blink of an eye, the 30m tall ancient demonic ape had directly risen to 300m tall. Cultivation strength, 2nd rank of the World Lord realm. 9 transformations of the demonic ape. 2nd transformation. After he shouted explosively for the 2nd time, a familiar feeling arose once more. The vital blood and energy within the 3 true forms surged once more, and it surpassed the 1st transformation. The ancient demonic ape was 300m tall during the 1st transformation, yet now, it had risen explosively to 3 kilometers tall. Cultivation strength, 3rd rank of the World Lord realm. At this point, there was no need to continue. He was already certain that the effect of the 9 transformations of the demonic ape hadn't changed. Every transformation would allow his cultivation to rise by a small rank. Now that Yi Xian had comprehended the 9 transformations of the demonic ape to the 5th transformation, this was equivalent to a 5 small rank increase in battle strength, and adding on the 1 small rank increase from activating the ancient demonic ape bloodline. If he needed it, his own battle strength could instantly rise by 6 small levels to reach Sector Lord level 6 from the peak of Domain Lord level 9. 6th rank of the World Lord realm at its strongest state. This is already the pinnacle of the middle stage of the World Lord realm, since that's the case. I'll break through another small rank. After figuring out all the problems, Yi Xian's eyes flashed with a bright light. He subconsciously clenched his fists as he muttered to himself, I only need one more small breakthrough. Then, when the Devil Ape's bloodline is activated, I will be able to use the 9 transformations of the Devil Ape to the 5th transformation. At that time, my cultivation will reach the Realm Master level. The 7th rank. Even though it's only a single rank of difference from the 6th rank of the World Lord realm, one is at the middle stage of the World Lord realm, while the other is at the late stage of the World Lord realm. Their combat strengths are completely different. Besides that, my current cultivation is at the peak of the 9th rank of the Region Lord realm under normal circumstances. I only need to break through a small rank before I'll be able to surmount an entire realm and reach the World Lord realm from the current peak of the Region Lord realm. This is even more significant. Any one of these points is worth me breaking through right now. Even though I've just experienced a great leap of an entire realm, if I don't hesitate to invest and exhaust my strength, then it's entirely possible to forcefully push my current cultivation up a small rank. I can do it. At the very least, it's worth a try for the sake of attaining a combat strength at the World Lord realm. When he spoke up to here, Yi Xian didn't hesitate any longer and directly deactivated the bloodline ability. Moreover, he struggled free from the ancient demonic ape bloodline state and returned to his human form. Just like before, he sat down cross-legged in the depths of the enormous liquid ball. Swish! 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 Yi Xian withdrew a huge amount of cultivation resources from the undying world within his body. Any single one of these resources would cause a stir and frenzy if placed in the outside world. Yet now, he'd practically spared no expense to withdraw them, and his objective was merely for the sake of breaking through a small rank. If news of this were to spread, then countless experts would beat their chests and stomp their feet. Natural Ean Chill Nectar, Nether Furnace Lotion, Heavenly Centipede Venom and Hellish Ant Elixir that had been refined by the Shinong Blaze, 10 drops of Evil Liquid, 109th rank 99 colored Starcore Quintessences, and a huge amount of 8-eyed silver crystals. Chapter 41:16. Yi Xian was very determined to break through the bottleneck, but he would be lying if he said that he wasn't nervous. It was because he hadn't refined the level 18 liquid at all. Ever since his cultivation of the ancient Dongshu chant was interrupted, he had been walking the path of body tempering by using the gene cultivation fluid. Although he had obtained the subsequent cultivation method of the ancient Dongshu chant, the cultivation method required comprehension, and the speed of improvement was slow. On the other hand, the path of body tempering was an evolutionary path. Once his body was strong enough, he would be able to break through the shackles of human potential in his body. Therefore, even after obtaining the subsequent techniques of the ancient Dongshu Sutra, Yi Xian had been practicing both martial arts, and his cultivation had always been in sync with his physical strength. But in fact, after so many times, there had only been one instance where a breakthrough in the cultivation of the cultivation method would lead to a breakthrough in the power of the qi and blood of the body. The rest were all through tempering the physical body, achieving a breakthrough in the realm using the power of the physical body's qi and blood, leading to a breakthrough in the cultivation of the cultivation method. For example, it was the same this time. He was trying to break through the bottleneck in seclusion, but he wasn't trying to comprehend the ancient Dongshu Sutra. Instead, he was trying to break through the bottleneck with his physical body as usual. However, the level 18 liquid was needed to break through from the State Lord level to the Sector Lord level. The level 16 liquid could create Star Lords. The level 17 liquid could create Realm Lords. The level 18 and level 19 liquids could create Realm Lords and Universe Lords. However, Yi Xian had the level 16 and level 17 liquids and had already made them. He had used the level 16 liquid when he broke through from the peak of the 9th rank of the Universe state to the 1st rank of the Star Lord level. As for the level 17 liquid, he didn't have time to use it at all before he jumped a major level and became a 9th rank Domain Lord from the 9th rank of the Star Lord level. That didn't make sense. Since he had been using gene cultivation liquids to strengthen his body, he had to use the level 17 liquid when he broke through from the 9th rank of the Star Lord level to the 1st rank of the Domain Lord level. The exception this time might have something to do with the massive amount of undying and indestructible biomass energy that Yi Xian had just absorbed. However, this was a one-time exception. At the very least, while he was still inside the liquid sphere, the color of the liquid was already very faint, and he was basically unable to absorb the mysterious undying and indestructible biomass. In other words, it was impossible for Yi Xian to break through to the Sector Lord realm from the peak of the 9th level of the Domain Lord realm like before, relying on an unexpected opportunity to break through in one go. He would most likely require a level 18 elixir used to create a Sector Lord. It was a pity that he didn't have any level 18 or level 19 liquid. Concocting these two top-grade liquid required all sorts of heaven and earth treasures. At the very least, he had to find a way to get them from the Sector Lord old monsters. He hadn't had the time to gather all of them yet. Without the level 18 elixir, this breakthrough was highly likely to fail. It was also because of this reason that Yi Xian gritted his teeth and took out a terrifying amount of peak-grade resources from his undying world. Actually, even if this was the case, it could only be considered as an attempt, and whether it would succeed was still unknown. After an unknown amount of time, when the slight piercing pain in his body disappeared, and his cultivation level finally stopped rising, Yi Xian's consciousness gradually became clear, and he opened his eyes. At this moment, the familiar sound of the system notification unexpectedly rang out in his mind once more. Ding! Congratulations host, Ancient Dongshu Technique Breakthrough. Current Realm, Sector Lord Realm Level 1. Ding! Congratulations host, Fleshly Body Blood Chi Breakthrough. Current Realm, Sector Lord Realm Level 1. Sector Lord Realm Level 1. Finally, he successfully broke through. Yi Xian clenched his fists tightly, and at this moment, he had the urge to howl towards the sky. From a small core realm cultivator to a Sector Lord old monster, his cultivation level had crossed over 18 realms, and all of this was accomplished in a short span of 2 to 3 years. If it was before, even Yi Xian himself would definitely not believe it, and wouldn't even dare to think about it. Today, he could finally be considered as a true expert. Moreover, on the surface, he was only a Sector Lord level 1, but that wasn't even his true strength. Previously, when his main body was at the peak of the 9th level of the Domain Lord realm, his ancient ape demon bloodline true body strength was at the 1st level of the Sector Lord realm. Once he executed the 9 transformations of the devil ape and reached the 5th transformation, he would instantly reach the 6th level of the Sector Lord realm, and every transformation would raise his strength by a small level. Now that his original body's cultivation had broken through once again, he had finally stepped into the 1st level of the Realm Lord realm. In that case, after activating the devil ape's bloodline, Yi Xian's cultivation in the 3-headed 6-armed ancient devil ape state would be able to reach the 2nd level of the Realm Lord realm. Once he entered the 5th transformation, his peak combat strength would reach the 7th level of the Sector Lord realm. The 7th level of the Sector Lord realm was the late stage of the Sector Lord realm, and it was completely different from the 6th level of the Sector Lord realm, which was the peak of the middle stage of the Sector Lord realm. If Yi Xian's various treasures and powerful bloodline abilities were included, then he was completely confident that he could fight a middle or even late stage undying expert head-on and defeat them. Even though he still couldn't fight a marquee-level expert, and he might even be beaten up, he had taken a huge step towards that level after all, and he was much, much closer. It could be said that his gains this time could be said to be unprecedented. In these few short hours, Yi Xian had undergone a magnificent transformation that was almost like a complete rebirth. Just as Yang Kai's heart was surging with excitement, 3 cries of incomparable joy suddenly came from the right. These cries were not real voices, but divine sense voices. After all, he was still inside the sphere of liquid at this moment. Wow! It's so comfortable, simply 10,000 times more comfortable than soaking in the spirit spring. No, even if I add up all the spirit springs I've soaked in and multiply it by 10,000 times, it still won't be as comfortable as this. So what if it's comfortable? The key is the benefits. What kind of zombie poison disgusting pus is this? It's simply a peerless treasure of heaven and earth. I've cultivated for so many years, but I've never experienced such a delightful cultivation speed before. It's just like flying, and it's going up. And it's not just in terms of cultivation technique, my physical body has clearly improved by a large amount too. Heavens, is this the legendary dual cultivation of martial arts and martial arts? After soaking in the bath, our cultivation technique and physical body's chi and blood realm are actually synchronized. This is absolutely crushing those of the same level. The rhythm of those of the same level. Very clearly, these were the divine sense voices of the three girls, Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha, and Zhao Qianru. From their words, it was obvious that the three girls had benefited a lot this time, and their voices were filled with a feeling of insanity. As these thoughts flashed through his mind, Yi Xian subconsciously extended a strand of divine sense to check the current cultivation level of the three girls. Chapter 41:17. Even Yi Xian was quite shocked when he saw how strong the Purplish Warbler, Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru had become. It was because the three of them had been in the cosmic state, the 14th level, while the Star Lord state was the 16th. There was a 15th level in between, the Cosmos state, which they had skipped. Yi Xian had only skipped one level, but the three girls had all skipped 2 levels. They weren't even in the Cosmos state before, but they were already Star Lords at the moment. Moreover, these three girls had only been at the cosmic light realm in the past. They had not taken the path of body tempering. Therefore, the realm of their chi and blood power had not even reached the cosmic light realm. However, not only had they become Star Lords at the moment, they were also Star Lords who practiced both martial arts and martial arts at the same time. They would have crushed any Star Lords of the same level. Their gains were definitely greater than those of Yi Xian. However, it was quite normal. After all, the three girls had been weak to begin with, yet they had jumped into the giant ball of liquid undying biomass almost at the same time as Yi Xian. Now that all of the special biomass energy had been completely absorbed, even if Yi Xian might have obtained more, Xianyuan Ziying and the other two girls obviously didn't absorb much either. It was quite understandable that they had become Star Lords in one fell swoop. Oh, I think someone scanned us with their divine senses. The scent is quite familiar. It's that big bad guy over there. Oh no, he's spying on us. That guy is really bad. He's so impatient. We're all clothed, yet he's still peeping. He's really desperate. But... Sister Ziying, Sister Qianru, I think we're taking a bath with him. Does it really matter if he's watching us? Ah, I almost forgot. Damn it. Why are we here? He's taking advantage of us. We're taking a bath with that bad guy. It's going to be so embarrassing. Let's go. Hardly had Yi Xian retracted his divine senses when the three girls, who had been excited for a moment, turned their attention to their current situation. They murmured to each other, but the Purplish Warbler and Zhao Qianru lost their minds because Duanmu Xiaocha hadn't warned them properly. Nianji shrieked. Hew! Hew, hew, very quickly, the sound of water splashing rang out. The three girls were clearly dressed properly, but their reactions were as if they were soaking with Yi Xian. They screamed as they fled in panic. Their figures shot out, and in the blink of an eye, they rushed out of the large ball of liquid that was no longer colorful. Seeing this scene, Yi Xian's face darkened, indicating that he'd received 10,000 points of damage. However, there was nothing he could do when facing these three girls. He could only shake his head and bitterly smile. His figure flashed as he rushed out as well, Heavenly River Star, in the cosmic void outside the atmosphere. In fact, by now, the unexpected zombie upheaval that had shocked the three main dimensions of the starry skies had finally come to an end. Even the triumphant fleet, which Naples had sent to the interior of Heavenly River Star to conduct a final search and complete disinfection, had now sailed out of Heavenly River Star one after another and stopped in the cosmic void near the atmosphere. 4 to 6 hours had passed since the cleanup fleet entered the interior of Heavenly River Star. At this time, the large number of starships that had been waiting around the void, as well as the starry sky masters standing in the cosmic void with their physical bodies, began to whisper to each other again after a long silence. Of course, the object of their discussion was still the giant liquid ball that was dozens of miles in diameter. 12 to 14 hours have passed. Do we still have to wait like this? Why don't we go in and see if the 4 of them are still there? What do you mean by still there? Don't you see that the 4 of them are sitting cross-legged in the giant liquid bowl? Several hours have passed. The colorful liquid has become extremely clear, and the 4 of them are clearly visible. More importantly, I don't know if they're still breathing. It's probably going to be a close call. The giant liquid ball with a diameter of several dozen miles has turned from its original rainbow color to its current clear as water. It's obvious that all of the zombie poison has been absorbed by them. Even if they're still breathing, they're probably not human anymore. They're definitely cosmic zombies. Now that you mention it, that's really the case. Look, those 3 girls are moving, zombies. They're definitely zombies. Hiss. Star-Lords. Weren't the 3 girls in the cosmic state when they went in? How did they break through 2 major levels in only a few hours? How is that possible? They're definitely zombies. Damn. The one behind them was even stronger. She was only a Star-Lord when she went in, and she's already a Sector Lord when she came out a few hours later. Who else could have improved so quickly? Kill them. Kill them immediately. As these cries of surprise rang out, the surrounding space quickly became lively again. There were even people who started to clamor for Yi Xian and the 3 girls to attack. However, most of the experts in the starry sky were still biding their time, but their faces were full of vigilance and suspicion. Obviously, they were unwilling to accept such a reality. It was too shocking that the #1 genius in the world had become a zombie in the universe. *T. Who's a cosmic zombie? I'll blow him up if he keeps yelling. The elephant fox Sable's expression instantly darkened. The power of his cultivation spread out, and with a single shout, the pressure of the immortal realm old monster filled the entire space. The starry sky experts that were clamoring to suppress Yi Xian instantly felt as if their necks had been grabbed, and the words in their mouths abruptly stopped. At this moment, after Yi Xian rushed out of the giant liquid ball, he withdrew the layer of Shenong 7-colored flames that wrapped around the giant liquid ball and returned it to the Shenong cauldron. Then, he waved his hand again and put the Shenong cauldron back into his undying world. Voila! As the Shenong 7-colored flames on the surface were removed, the liquid ball that had lost its support instantly dispersed. It turned into an extremely clear liquid that floated in the void of the universe. Compared to the colorful zombie pus and the colorful puddles that had been refined by the Shenong flames, the liquid was as pure as water. Not only was it free of zombie venom, it was even drinkable. Chapter 41:18. The Star State experts in the void finally realized what was going on. They noticed that Yi Xian, the purplish warbler, Duamu Xiaoqia and Zhao Qianru hadn't been infected by the so-called zombie virus. When he thought about it carefully, he realized that when the liquid was still zombie poison and disgusting pus, its color was very obvious and colorful, which made people's scalps tingle. However, later, Yi Xian extracted a large cluster of mysterious flames from the Shenong cauldron and refined the liquid ball, which had already been condensed to a diameter of 100 kilometers. The color of the giant liquid ball changed again. It changed from the previous colorful color to the later 7 colors. Although it was still mottled, it was no longer that disgusting color. Instead, it gave people a dreamy feeling of jewels and treasures. At that time, more than half of the giant liquid ball with a diameter of 100 kilometers had been refined, leaving only 30 to 40 kilometers in diameter. It was obvious that the zombie toxins and pus in the liquid had been completely removed at that time. If that wasn't the case, Yi Xian wouldn't have jumped in without the slightest hesitation. It meant that when Yi Xian jumped into the liquid ball, it was no longer zombie venom and disgusting pus inside, but some kind of cultivation resource that had been refined with such a thing. As for Yi Xian and the three girls who jumped in later on, the reason why their cultivations had improved so much in such a short period of time was because Yi Xian himself had risen from the Star Lord realm to the Realm Lord realm. The three girls had advanced from the cosmic state to the Star Lord state. Almost all of them had crossed the chasm of 2 major levels. The real reason for that was the colorful, mysterious resources and materials that had been inside the liquid ball. Unfortunately, those resources and materials had long since disappeared. It was precisely because of this that this huge liquid ball had turned into pure water. Countless people in the surrounding void were pounding their chests and stomping their feet when they realized that, damn it. Just now, I missed an opportunity to become a Star Lord instantly. Yes, yes, yes. The lucky girl. No, the lucky guy waved at me and kindly reminded me to come with you. However, I still missed it because of my hesitation. What's wrong with you? After all, you're still hesitating. I'm Yi Xian's diehard fan. Just now, when he waved his hand, I already took a step forward, but in the end, I was pulled back by that guy. What zombie poison, tell me not to go. Where's the guy pulling people? Hurry up and come out. I promise I won't kill you. Ha ha ha. Star Lord. My Xianyuan family's little Ziying has actually become a Star Lord monster. Waha, the two of them have a telepathic connection. Everyone else was hesitating, but this old man's good granddaughter rushed out without hesitation. Even if it was zombie poison, she was not afraid of it. That's so touching. Old man Xianyuan, do you have any shame? What couple? Love is stronger than gold. Little friend Yi is clearly our Xiaocha's. He's my future grandson-in-law. Oh, old man Zhao, why did you pull my beard? You want to steal my grandson-in-law, so what's the big deal about pulling a few strands of your beard? Didn't you see my little Qian jump in as well? She and little friend Yi are true love. Damn it. Where did these 3 crazy old men come from? They didn't get the opportunity themselves, but they won't even let the little girl go. Can they be any more shameless than that? Yi Xian's face gradually darkened when he saw the purplish warbler's grandfather and 2 other old men, who were suspected to be Duanmu Xiaocha and Zhao Qianru's grandson-in-law, arguing that he was their grandson-in-law. After fighting in front of countless experts of the starry sky, Yi Xian was so shocked that his entire body trembled. His face, which had just darkened, turned green again. Looks like this really isn't a place to stay for long. It's better to leave quickly. At the very least, I should avoid this scene. Otherwise, it would really be troublesome if those 3 shameless old geezers couldn't come to a conclusion and came before me to seek confirmation face to face. No matter what answer he gave, the purplish warbler's 3 little girls would bear a grudge against him. As for not saying anything and keeping silent, sorry, it would be even worse. Thinking of this, Yi Xian suddenly lost his composure. He hurriedly activated the cultivation in his body and said loudly, "Everyone, this is the end. This matter is over, and Yi Xian will leave." For the last time, although this prince's press conference is just a cover, the ultimate goal is to confuse the universe zombies on the Sky River planet and take advantage of their unpreparedness to lay down a large number of troops and annihilate them in one fell swoop. However, everything Yi Xian had said before was true. The name of Prince Xian, please don't mention it again in the future. I am me. I am Yi Xian. Goodbye. After saying that, Yi Xian didn't stay any longer. He turned around and rushed toward the star passage in the Sky River planet's atmosphere behind him. The reason why he didn't leave this star sector directly but went to the Sky River planet was because there was still a zombified superbrain waiting for him to collect. Now that the Sky River planet had been taken over by the victorious return army under the command of Naples, the star passage in the atmosphere was heavily guarded, so there was no need to worry that the universe masters behind him would swarm up and follow him. As Yi Xian's figure disappeared and entered the star passage in the Sky River planet's atmosphere, the countless universe masters in the surrounding void were stunned for a moment. Then, they began to talk again. Previously, because of the sudden appearance of the universe's zombies, they had all forgotten about the prince's press conference this time. However, at this moment, after hearing Yi Xian's reminder, everyone recalled everything that had happened before the zombies appeared, including how Yi Xian had waved his hand and summoned the Medicine King's divine cauldron during the battle with the zombie emperor Tuoba Lin Feng. For a moment, almost all eyes were on the three immortal realm masters, Long Shantang, Gong Huaji, and the elephant fox Martin. There was a strange look in their eyes as they whispered to each other. These three old men had come this time to represent the two major camps of the human race, as well as the headquarters of the Wanluo Federation. Originally, they had said that they were going to bring Prince Xian back to the immortal planet. However, now it seemed that Yi Xian clearly didn't have this intention. Not only did he not plan to return to the immortal planet, but from his tone, it was clear that he didn't plan to use the identity of Prince Xian in the future. Thinking about it, it made sense. The other party was a group of 7 freaks. Aside from Prince Xian, the other 6 were all freakishly talented existences. Such heaven-defying talents were simply unprecedented, and there would be no one like them in the future. Was there a need to curry favor with an undying dynasty? Chapter 41:19. Among the 4 immortal realm old monsters, Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher was the least responsive to the whispers. He turned to look at the other 3 and snorted coldly. With a flash of his body, he also rushed toward the star passage in the atmosphere of the Sky River planet behind him. He disappeared in the blink of an eye. The elephant fox ferret, Long Shantang, and Gong Huaji looked at each other with strange expressions. Considering the identities of the 3 of them, as well as the purpose of their visit to Sky River Planet, their current situation was so awkward that it could not get any more awkward. When had the immortal old monsters ever encountered such an awkward situation? In particular, there were countless human clan Starry Sky experts and people of the Federation in the surrounding void. Almost all of them were looking at them with strange eyes and talking to each other. The 3 old guys felt as if there was a knife on their back. They could not leave, nor could they stay, nor could they follow them into the heavenly river planet. They were so depressed. Of course, the elephant fox ferret was just pretending to be depressed. However, his acting was only 60% or 70%, and the other 30% or 40% of his depression was real. But this depression was not because of the awkward situation he was in now. He had already surrendered to Yi Xian, so even if he was a member of Yi Xian's camp, it was the Wanluo Federation that was embarrassed. It had nothing to do with him. The reason he was depressed was that he was so regretful that his intestines were turning green. Just now, Yi Xian had leaped into the giant ball of liquid and waved his hand to say that he wanted to come together. After hearing those words, his heart was moved and he almost rushed out. Unfortunately, he was one step too slow. By the time the 3 girls rushed into the giant liquid ball and he was about to take a step forward, Old Ghost Mosquito Butcher had already warned him. It was impossible for him to get a share of the loot. For him, this was definitely a painful loss of good fortune. In that liquid ball with a diameter of 30 to 40 miles, there was obviously a huge amount of mysterious resources. Although he had the foundation of the middle stage of the immortal realm, it was impossible for him to directly cross a big realm. But even if it was just a small breakthrough, it was still possible. After all, under normal circumstances, it was impossible for him to cultivate from the middle stage of the immortal realm to the late stage of the immortal realm without hundreds or thousands of years. Thousands of years of cultivation had been lost because of a moment of hesitation. If this happened to anyone, they would probably regret it for a long time. In addition to the elephant fox ferret, the other 2 immortal old monsters, Gong Huaji, who represented the 10 Ju celestial palaces, was not so bad. Tang, who represented the immortal dynasty, at this time, was so ashamed that his whole face was like a monkey's face. How could he not be ashamed? Previously, when Yi Xian was in the devil domain, he had taken the initiative to propose an alliance with the human clan. The human clan included the immortal dynasty and the 10 extreme heavenly palaces, but Yi Xian had mentioned this alliance to him. He was looking for the immortal dynasty, not the 10 extreme heavenly palaces. This showed that Yi Xian still cared about the inexplicable friendship with the dynasty, even if the dynasty directly sent him to the death celestial palaces after he arrived at the immortal star. However, in the face of Yi Xian's good intentions, Tang Long refused without hesitation, and even mocked him, saying that Yi Xian was arrogant and conceited. In the end, not long after that, he had become the owner of the great providence of the current world. Furthermore, he had directly revealed his true identity as one of the 7 freaks. However, he had nothing to do with the everlasting dynasty anymore. This was more than a slap in the face. It was simply a slap in the face. Even if Tang Long's face was thick, he could not sit still at this moment. According to his temperament, in such an embarrassing situation, he was afraid that he would have turned around and left in shame. However, he came here on behalf of the entire dynasty. Now that things had developed into such an embarrassing situation, it was impossible for anyone from the dynasty to be willing to come over and deal with his mess. This matter. Therefore, even if he was ashamed, Tang Long could only pinch his nose and accept it. He braced himself and stayed to deal with the aftermath of this matter. At the very least, the relationship with Yi Xian had to be repaired. Yi Xian now represented the great luck of the 3 main planes of the sky. In the face of the great calamity that was about to befall the untainted world, this kind of fate attribute factor was too important, and related to the fate of a clan. The survival of the clan was not up to him to not be cautious. With each of them in mind, the elephant fox ferret, Tang Longshan, Gong Hua, and the 3 immortal old monsters all turned around and returned to the flagship fortresses of their respective fleets. Although the current Sky River star was controlled by the zombie superbrain, and there was no regional star network signal, the star network signal of the small country still covered this star field. It was just that the signal was slightly weaker, but with this level of connection, they could contact the dynasty immortal star. There was no problem at all, as well as the headquarters of the 10 Ju heavenly palaces of the cultivation camp, Tian Ju Palace. The 3 old fogies hurriedly returned to their respective flagship fortresses to seek the opinions of the higher-ups behind them. Of course, everything that happened here had long been known to the 3 main planes of the sky. The previous prince's press conference was broadcasted live to the 3 main planes of the sky. Although the universe zombies and the Sky River star had appeared out of nowhere, causing a huge commotion and shocking changes, the major star media fortresses in the surrounding void that were responsible for the live broadcast did not stop at all. Work, struggle on the front line, and all the scenes were transmitted out, putting aside Gong Hua of the 10 Ju heavenly palaces and the elephant fox ferret of the myriad Luo Federation, Tang Longshan, who represented the immortal dynasty, immediately contacted the Imperial Court's dormitory elder pavilion as soon as he entered the flagship fortress. The changes that happened this time were too shocking. The entire Imperial Court's dormitory elder pavilion was in a complete mess, and the holographic 3-dimensional image in front of him was in chaos. After receiving the communication signal sent by Tang Longshan, the holographic 3-dimensional image flashed, and the image that appeared in Tang Longshan's sight was actually an immortal emperor of the dynasty who had not been born for a long time. He was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. "Little Tang, I already know everything that happened over there. Now the entire dormitory elder pavilion is in chaos. You guys handled this matter too much. Didn't you get any news beforehand? Such a great person of great fortune was actually pushed to the opposite side of the Imperial Court by you guys. Are you, all F*** king useless?" Chapter 41:20 After passing through the star passage in the atmosphere and entering the interior of the heavenly river star, Yi Xian stood high in the sky, looking at the familiar heavenly river star. At this moment, it was cold and cheerless, and it was rare to see a few figures. He couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. He still had some feelings for the heavenly river star. After entering the starry sky, the heavenly river star was the first planet with life he came into contact with. Moreover, even Yi Xian's Federation identity and interstellar mercenary status were registered here. Including the 2 times he appeared out of nowhere and shocked the 3 main dimensions of the starry sky, it was also here. This time, he came to the heavenly river star and took the initiative to reveal his identity. Although he ended the past with Prince Xian, it didn't mean that the special situation he had with the heavenly river star was buried in the past as well. Furthermore, this was the closest life star to the 9 heavenly star. The 9 heavenly star was located in an extremely secluded corner of the universe. The edge of the 9 heavenly star was very long and was shrouded in a unique fog. Hence, it had not been discovered until now. However, with the arrival of the great desolate world, it was only a matter of time before the 9 heavenly stars were exposed. Standing in the sky above the heavenly river star, Yi Xian was in a daze for a moment. These thoughts flashed through his mind, and he felt inexplicably emotional. After a long time, he shook his head with a bitter smile. Whether it was the 9 heaven star or the ancient planet he came from, he couldn't search for them or care about them. He only needed to know that they were safe for the time being. What he needed to do now was to become stronger, and constantly stronger. Facing the prehistoric world that would arrive at any time, his current cultivation level of the Sector Lord realm was too weak. After shaking his head and temporarily shaking off the feelings in his mind, Yi Xian's figure flashed and landed on the main continent of the heavenly river star below. Here, the heavenly river city stood at the edge of the main continent, facing the sea. Originally, it was a magnificent scene, but now, there were only a few figures. Only the experts of the victorious return army, who were in charge of taking over this place, occasionally came and went. Following Yi Xian's arrival, Naples, who was the first to enter the heavenly river planet, quickly rushed over. Young master, the entire heavenly river planet has been searched and cleaned up. There are no remnants of the zombie poison, including the zombie lair at the military base in the depths of the heavenly river sea. It seems that in this short period of time, under the carpet search of a large number of victorious return legion experts, Tuoba Lin Feng's hiding place on the Sky River Star was finally found. This kid really knows how to hide. He actually hid in a military base in the depths of the sea. As the secret base of the heavenly river planet's garrison, there must have been a large array formation set up to conceal his aura. It's the best place to hide. Why didn't I think of it before? Hearing Naples' words, Yi Xian immediately came to a realization and laughed involuntarily. There is no other discovery in that secret military base. After all, Tuoba Lin Feng has decided to fully evacuate. After that, the heavenly river star will be searched thoroughly. There is no point in leaving behind any backup arrangements. It can't be hidden. There is no point. Taking over the conversation, Naples continued, right now, the only thing left in the entire heavenly river star is the central control room of the heavenly river star network. It has been checked. The superbrain, which is the intelligence center of the heavenly river star network, is still there. It has indeed been zombified. However, for some reason, it died because of the execution of Tuoba Lin Feng. Now, it is under our control. This is a bit strange. Hearing Naples' reminder, Yi Xian exclaimed in surprise, Tuoba Lin Feng is the source of the poison for this universe's zombie race. The entire universe's zombie race is derived from his bloodline. Once he dies, all the zombies will explode at the same time. This is the reason why all the zombies will be damaged. This should be determined by some special characteristics of the universe's zombie virus. Previously, after Tuoba Lin Feng was killed, all the universe's zombies exploded and died in an instant, including the 4 zombie behemoths that had evolved to the middle stage of the immortal realm by devouring each other. However, this zombified superbrain was left unscathed. This matter is indeed a bit strange. Take me to see it. Naples nodded and didn't say much. He turned around and led the way. After a while, he brought Yi Xian to the central control room of the Heavenly River Star Network under the Star-Lord Mansion. In his line of sight, there was a thing about the size of a human head. It looked like a mollusk, but it had no head or face. It was more like the legendary Taisui fungus. It was quietly lying in a culture tank that had been set up with restrictions. This thing was blue with a hint of red in it. It looked a little strange. At this time, it seemed to have sensed someone's arrival. It trembled slightly, causing the light blue gene culture fluid that it was soaking in to ripple slightly. This thing was the superbrain that acted as the intelligence center of the Heavenly River Star Network. Of course, it was an ordinary superbrain, unlike the 2 superbrains in the Immortal Star and Tianji City, which were top-level superbrains at the immortal level. However, although this superbrain's level was ordinary, it was estimated that there was no other superbrain like it in the 3 main planes of the universe today. It was absolutely unique. Because it had been zombified, and strangely, it didn't die out because of the execution of the emperor of this universe's zombie population. Perhaps it was because of the superbrain's unique characteristics. Because the superbrain wasn't a real living body at all. In some aspects, it was similar to the commonly known Taisui fungus. It was between living matter and non-living matter. Perhaps this was why, although it had been zombified, it didn't die out because of the execution of the emperor of this universe's zombie population. Of course, this was only Yi Xian's guess. Whether or not this was the truth would require further research and exploration before he could confirm. However, this matter might be a headache for others. They would need to carefully research, analyze, and even deduce it time and time again. However, it wasn't a problem for Yi Xian at all. With the devouring system in his body, solving this kind of problem was a piece of cake. At this time, just as Yi Xian was about to contact the devouring system in his body and use it to investigate the zombified superbrain in front of him and find out what was wrong with it, a familiar system notification suddenly sounded in his mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host. You have discovered a mutant superbrain. Do you want to start devouring it immediately? Hint, there is a certain risk in devouring it. If it succeeds, the growth-level immortal superbrain, which is the main control center of the system's personal communication system, will most likely enter the mature stage. If it fails, the consequences are unknown. Chapter 41-21. A mutant superbrain. Devour. A growth-level immortal superbrain that was the main control center of the system's personal communication system could possibly enter the mature stage. When these words flashed through Yi Xian's mind, a look of shock immediately appeared on his face. He knew very well how difficult it was to evolve a Starry Sky superbrain. Otherwise, the 3 Starry Sky main planes wouldn't only have 2 mature immortal-grade Starry Sky superbrains after so many years of development. One of them was on the Immortal Planet, the intelligence center of the Immortal Dynasty and the Myriad Net Federation Star Network. The other was in Tianji City, the headquarters of the Tianji clan. It was the intelligence center of the Tianji fortress that had disappeared and whose whereabouts were unknown. As for Yi Xian, he originally only had a fragment of an immortal-level superbrain. It was precisely because of this fragment that Yi Xian was able to activate the personal star communication system attached to the devouring system in his body. After activating the personal communication system, Yi Xian was like carrying an interstellar network with him everywhere he went. Even if he didn't have a battleship or any other modern technological equipment, he could still connect to nearby administrative planets through the personal communication system attached to the system in his body when he was alone in the universe. To the interstellar network, However, even though Yi Xian had invested a huge amount of rare resources to help this immortal superbrain evolve, it had only entered the mature stage from its previous fragmented state. It was still a long way from the final mature stage. Right now, the opportunity to make this immortal-level superbrain that had just entered the growth stage evolve and break through to the mature stage was right in front of them. It would be a lie to say that Yi Xian wasn't moved. Although the Starry Sky superbrain in his hand was no longer a fragment after Yi Xian invested a large amount of resources into nurturing it, it was a complete immortal-level Starry Sky superbrain. However, the difference between an immortal superbrain in the mature stage and the mature stage was huge. It wasn't that big of a difference, but it wasn't that big of a difference. Let me give you a simple example. Currently, the immortal-grade superbrain in Yi Xian's hands was in its growth stage. If Yi Xian needed it, he could activate the personal intergalactic communication system attached to the devouring system in his body. The furthest he could go would allow him to silently connect to the Imperial Star Sector network in the Heavenly Dark Empire. This was the limit, and he had to take a certain risk. If he left a trace in the Imperial Star Sector network of the Heavenly Dark Empire, it would attract the attention of the mature immortal star superbrain on the undying star of the dynasty. Once the other party followed the clues, it was very likely that they would be able to locate Yi Xian and confirm that the immortal-grade superbrain in its growth stage was with him. Although it couldn't take it away, it could keep a close eye on Yi Xian in the dark. The next time Yi Xian used the star communication system, it could invade the network of another star field. In that case, the mature Starry Sky superbrain of the undying star of the Imperial Court would be able to quickly move out and track it down like a melon. It would directly devour Yi Xian's immortal-level Starry Sky superbrain. It could even invade the devouring system in Yi Xian's body and make some changes. None of this could be completely ruled out. It was for this reason that Yi Xian rarely used the personal intergalactic communication system attached to the devouring system in his body when he was in the first and third universes. He would try not to use it if he could. The reason was that he was afraid of being discovered by the two mature superbrains on the undying star and Tianji City. However, if the immortal-grade superbrain in Yi Xian's hands wasn't in its growth stage but had already reached its mature stage, then the situation would be completely different. First of all, if Yi Xian needed it, after he activated the personal intergalactic communication system, the distance of the star sector network he could access would be maximized. It would be easy for him to reach the Imperial Star of the Heavenly Dark Empire. Even if he didn't dare to say that it covered the entire third universe, he could definitely connect to the dynasty's main network on the undying star through the personal intergalactic communication system in his body from the Heavenly River Star. Moreover, even if he did that, Yi Xian wouldn't have to worry about being discovered by the mature immortal-grade superbrain on the dynasty's undying star superbrain like he was now. Both of them were in their mature stage and were immortal-grade superbrains. The question of who would devour who no longer existed. In other words, under such circumstances, even if Yi Xian wanted to search for some information and data from the Undying Star Dynasty's main network or the Myriad Net Federation Central Networks database, he wouldn't have to be like before and now, where he had a plan but didn't dare to put it into action. He could just invade directly. Even if he was discovered by the mature immortal-grade superbrain on the undying star, he could at most compete with them. As long as they were of the same level, there was nothing he could do if the other party couldn't devour him. Right now, I'm only at the Sector Lord realm. Once I break through to the universe realm, I'll have to gather a large amount of natural treasures and rare resources to refine the level 19 liquid. I'm really in urgent need of information. It's too important. Various thoughts flashed through his mind as Yi Xian muttered to himself. The light in his eyes gradually became firm. Besides, the chaos of the Great Desolate Era can descend at any time. I don't have much time left. I have to increase my cultivation as quickly as possible. This also requires strength and power. I have to be strong enough to support. If that's the case, this opportunity has come at the right time. It's like giving me a pillow when I'm about to fall asleep. I'm really unwilling to miss this opportunity. At this point, Yi Xian suddenly clenched his right fist and finally made a decision. Although the consequences of failing to devour are unknown, it sounds a little scary. If I succeed, the rewards will be so great that I can't refuse. Besides, there's already a 60% chance of success. No matter what, I'll go all out. After saying that, he didn't hesitate anymore. He immediately gave an affirmative reply to the devouring system in his body and started devouring the mutant-grade superbrain in front of him right away. Whoosh! Just as Yi Xian decided to take the risk and gave the devouring system in his body the command, a faint sound of something breaking through the air was heard. The mutant-grade superbrain in the culture tank in front of him instantly disappeared. Obviously, it had been forcefully devoured by the devouring system in Yi Xian's body and absorbed into his body.